Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting of January the 22nd, 2024. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leaves of absence. Also like to welcome Nigel Morris, our Chief Executive, Stacey Bettison, General Manager Community, Andy Baker, General Manager Infrastructure, and some of our other staff who are also here. I'd ask you all now to please stand for the acknowledge country and the government prayer. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, Paramount and Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just to remind council members of your obligations under declarations of interest, and if a council member has an interest in a matter which will be before council at this meeting, they are asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide a full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting. Members are reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. Item 1 is the confirmation of our minutes of our meeting held on the 18th of December 2023, and there's a recommendation that those minutes be received as true and correct. Moved Councillor Maidman. Seconded Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion relating to those minutes? Not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 3 is presentations and deputations. 3.1 is a deputation from the People's Health Alliance regarding the Fleurieu hub. Miss Nicola Morris was going to give this presentation, but she's not available. And so one of the other members, Ina, is going to make that deputation for us. So if you could come forward, that'd be great. And do you, that's one, yep, and do you need more than 5 minutes?
So,
So, can everybody okay with that?
Could be shorter, but
that's right.
So,
yep, that's okay. So, yep, go ahead. Thank
you. For your convenience and information, we have previously emailed the mayor and all councillors our proposal. I hope you received it all. And so, respectively, we request permission for an extra 5 minutes. So we are a local hub of international organisation, and it's called People's Health Alliance. PH is committed to by the people for the people. Now, what do we want? We like a pro bono space for health, allied health, wellness professionals to offer and provide community services and activities to all community members. So we can benefit all people in the community, and in particular individuals who have limited access to health choices or are isolated, have financial pressure, limited informal support, are feeling overwhelmed, have psychosocial challenges and or limited mobility. So this organisation are all registered health professionals. We have Margaret, she is an ex-nurse and she is a naturopath. We have Katty, she's a midwife and a naturopath. And Nicola is a public health person. We have psychologist, which is me, registered. So we are an organisation with lots of diverse skills. So So, points of difference from current community programs, we coordinate a holistic one-stop shop for physical and psychosocial wellness available to all. Early intervention programs and services that build knowledge, confidence, resilience, self-advocacy and empowerment skills through education, peer connection, information, support, advice, and also referrals to other health practitioners. So health promotion and prevention for education and empowerment for health and wellness outcomes. This includes programs and services tailored to an individual identified needs. We want to provide a coordinated skill set of pro bono practitioners as a support network and referrals as needed for all people on a sliding scale, with no one turned away for financial reasons with a sliding scale. Pay it forward, such as a social care pot. So basically, what we like to do that all practitioners will give some free time, and it depends how many hours they want to pro bono. Other skill sets also utilized by volunteers and those who wish to exchange skill time for services such as social media, marketing, program assistance, library sorting, with consideration for policies such as client confidentiality. Community connections for all, for example, workshops and support groups, peer mentoring, and initiatives such as healthy, affordable cooking, relaxation, mindfulness, meditation, child development, and parenting in a family-centered, practical context, baby, children, maybe close exchange, guest speakers. Now, the level of demand, currently PHA Fleurieu Hub has 27 active online members. We have monthly meetings at private homes where we get approximately 10 to 15 people attending. We often have a guest presenter on a health topic and to share initiatives from other hubs. Through the Australia, New Zealand, and even UK PH social media networks, we can access wider resources. On 26th of November 2023, we held a PHA Expo at Kidda Winery, McLarenville, to promote ourselves and our vision for a centre where we can realize what we are wanting to offer in the community. The event was so successful for networking with new people. Meanwhile, with no physical venue, we are operating in a very limited way. For example, an individual contacts one of our members through the grapevine, with connections made to support the individual on a one-to-one basis. This is mostly cries for help, and it's not holistic or preventative. In fact, it is usually crisis-based. Our vision is greater for a physical presence and service in this community, such as starting with a 1-2 days a week with coordinated, sustainable services available. You can have a look at our proposal, what we will send to you. Based on anecdotal feedback from members, their contacts, and approximately 50 people at the expo, people are interested in the Fleurieu Community Hub, such as we propose. Frequently expressed is frustration of the lack of coordinated, accessible, holistic health services, including for psychosocial support and for preventative and/or early intervention programs across the lifespan. And there is supported research There is an identified need for more coordinated and early intervention, local services, including mental health. And mental health is on the rise every day. I can't keep up. People with anxiety, depression, it's actually very sad, it's skyrocketing. And preventative healthcare. This can be found in many resources, including there's an International Journal of Mental Health System, March 2020, which states to detect and treat mental health as early as possible. And we need to treat it early, we need to prevent it. Not when they come in and they're in crisis. We need it now. To avoid suicide and out of control behaviors. There's also the health of government Australia, looking after your body and mind, being active and avoiding risky behaviors can prevent many, many illnesses. There's also a review from the NDIS, working together to deliver the NDIS independent review into the National Disability Insurance Scheme final report, supporting analysis. Commonwealth of Australia 2023 covers the lack of coordinated local early intervention services, in particular in rural communities, for all population, with children, elderly, Indigenous, and those with mental health and other disabilities among the most vulnerable. It also highlights the importance of the need for services that empower individuals for their lives and for the recovery-focused intervention. Based on all of this, our program is a well-placed, timely option. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Gardner.
I'm just wondering whether you've heard of the Goolwa Community Centre,
Yes.
and if you've made contact with them.
The Goolwa Community Centre is different, it's more social. As you know, the programs over there are more to do with connecting and not health related. There's one program which is going to run, it's called Mental Health and Nutrition, but it's not offered in the centre itself, it's outside the centre. So that's why I wrote down points of difference from current community programs. So we have a holistic approach, teaching, educating, preventing suicide, preventing that people get in crisis, and when they come to see me, they are in crisis. We like to prevent it.
I'm just wondering whether you've actually been to talk with Di Gordon, the centre manager, because they're actually running a program called the Phoenix program, which is precisely what you're talking about. It is in fact for women. It hasn't included men, mostly because the funding has only included women. But in terms of looking at women's overall health and looking at numerous women who are part of the program who are quite in need of mental health, this one is certainly being an important program for a number of women. So I'm just wondering whether you've actually talked to the centre manager.
No, I haven't spoken to the centre manager at all, but like you said, it's only for women, and we want to drop-in centre where everybody is welcome, as well as young parents, as well as children, as well as people I meet. So it's not like just putting programs together, because most of the time when there is a crisis, people want to come in and they want to connect, and then saying to them, oh, there's a program running in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's not very helpful. So we really need a hub where people can come in, and then we provide the services, and then we might be able to refer to other health professionals as well in the community. Because even myself, I haven't been here that long, and I try to figure out where everything is. It's all disjointed. It's a little bit here and a little bit there, and there's not really one hub where people can come. And also, it costs a lot of money. So we're giving our services for free. Well, where do you get that? And we're not asking for funding, we're asking for a building where we can actually start the community. And there is a need for it.
Do we have any further? Councillor Nicholson? Yeah.
Thank you, Ina, so much for the presentation. It's really interesting, and I'm certainly supportive of anything related to preventative and primary health, healing, prevention. My question is, have you been in touch with the council administration about any council-owned properties that we currently have available and put in an application?
No, I don't know the health administration. Is that what you call it? Health administration?
Sorry, the council administration here at Alexandrina.
No.
But yeah, I think that could be a
Is
good...
anyone of you aware of that?
We actually contacted. That's why we did. Yeah, that's why we did. We were advised this was our first order.
But you see, if we would contact them, we go under their umbrella. We want our own.
That's the first
And
step.
work with them together.
Councillor Miller.
Okay?
I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing, which for free, as I understand it, and that you're looking for space. My comment is, I guess it's very sad that people like you, professionals, have to fill these gaps that exist in our system. And so I wanted to congratulate you and thank you for the work that you're doing. And I'm sure the administration will provide you some advice as to, but I would encourage you to contact your state MP and federal MP to see if there's some assistance. But it's important work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, even I have to say, and I'm not going to, laud myself, but I'm a building psychologist, and my fee when I started in 2004 went up $10 from 2004 till now. I can't charge people $130 gap fee when they're coming in crisis. It's insane. Yeah. So that's why we need this hub so that other people can also, benefit, because I can only take so many clients.
Do we have any further questions? Councillor Scott? If you can all make sure your microphones are turned on before we start, please, so that we don't waste time.
Sorry, I usually do. What sort of sized area of building are you looking for?
Well, a building where, where we have, maybe there is a little kitchen, maybe some rooms where we can do our programs, or where people can just meet. Because one of the things we also is lacking is support group, and I have a lot of evidence that people with anxiety and depression be part of the support group will help them tremendously. I also work with 10 clients, so there's the other ladies over there, and we need a support group, so we need rooms where we can do all that. And and it's not good. I've done it before where I go, I do support groups in that area over there, and then I go cancer support group in that area over there. It's nice to have one hub, and so that people can come when they are in need, and then we can set up the program. So yes, different rooms, one center, little area where you can make tea and coffee when people are in crisis, things like that.
So thanks for that. That brings us to the end of our time. We're over time. So thanks very much, Ina.
Thank you very much.
You all received, I know you all received the email. So you've got the contact details, and you can email Ina or her team and ask questions and get more information as you wish. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have at 3.2, we have a deputation from Peter Lucas on behalf of the Milang Railway Group. And Peter's making a deputation regarding the Milang Master Plan. So welcome, Peter.
Mr Mayor, Councillors, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Peter Lucas, I'm Secretary of the Milang Railway Museum, and I'm here representing our members and also people who signed our petition, which will come to in a moment. I'd like to refer to the Milang Master Plan, which is, part of it is up there, and in particular to the area of Daranda Terrace, which is within the red lines up there. Firstly, I would like to start with a positive and say that we do agree with item 1 at the top of that area, which is an improvement to, a safety improvement to the junction between Woodgrove, Ratalang and Daranda Terrace. There have been a lot of near misses there, and we are in favour of improving that junction to improve visibility and make it safer. However, every other change to Daranda Terrace we are very much against. Let me work out how I do this. Yep, okay. Now, I'll start at the top there. Oh, well, that's item 1. That's the junction I was talking about. Now, in this view, we've got 2 photos. The left-hand one is a Google Earth view of the area at the moment, and on the right is Council's master plan proposal. Firstly, item 3 up there. Council is proposing to put some paved areas and trees on the south side of Daranda Terrace at that road junction. We have a problem with that because for the last 140 years, visitors to Milang and the local townspeople have had a lovely view of Lake Alexandrina, the history trail, the railway wagon display, the weighbridge, the shacks. They've been able to see it all. That view will now be completely blocked by those trees. So we would much rather that they went there. But then we'll get on to, oops, sorry. Then we'll get on to more concrete reasons. Council is proposing that instead of the gravel area you see in the left-hand picture, they want to put some formalised parking perpendicular to the road. That has a major economic problem for us. Mainly because we get a lot of people going through Milang and they stop off for lunch. So I'm talking about farm machinery, trucks, and as you can see in the left-hand picture, when the satellite went over, there happened to be a couple of grey nomads parked there. Now, if council puts that formalised parking in, none of that can happen. It would be very difficult for grey nomads to pull into that area across the car parks, and if there's a car park there, it will be impossible. So we have a major economic problem with that. It would stop a lot of visitors from stopping off in Milang all the way through. The next area is down by the Railway Museum. At the moment we have just a gravel area around the front of the museum with no curbing or anything, so people can drive onto the lawns. And they do a lot. Every Sunday you'll see cars parked under the trees there in the shade. It means that people who have got elderly or disabled people in their cars, they can pull up very close to the entrance ramp to the station, or at the light railway centre, which is actually off the bottom of the photo. It makes it very flexible. Sorry, just bear with me a second. It also means that we can have a lot of events and things. We often have car clubs, vintage car clubs, and they come in, they drive onto the lawns, they go in rows, they have their photos taken, they have lunch at the museum, and then they go home. With curbing and a formalised entrance, that wouldn't be possible. In a couple of months' time, we have the Milang Easter Fair. And again, we have a whole load of stalls that drive onto the lawns, park, spend their day there, and drive off again. All those things would not be possible with this formalised approach. So in summary, Daranda Terrace is the way it's been for the last 140 years. It's historic, it's flexible, it works very well for everyone. Please can you leave it alone? That's it.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions of Peter? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Peter, thank you very much. At the the budget annual business plan consultation at Milang, I think pretty much verbatim everything you've just said was raised with every person who spoke to me during that budget, and it was about, well, the number one thing was we have farm machinery, wide farm machinery go through Milang, and they like to stop at the shops and get a sausage roll and a iced coffee and what have you. And so what you've just said resonates and is consistent with what I heard from many people at the budget consultation that was done middle of last year. So thank you very much for taking the time to present, and the images are really helpful. I think visual representations are really great. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
So, Peter, what you're saying is it's not broke, don't fix it.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you for all that, and I can appreciate your sentiments. Having been there to your Easter fair as well last year. As an alternative, have you got any suggestions as a compromise? This is trying to, I guess, sharpen up Milang. It's a lovely little town. I'm a great supporter of Milang. But have you any ideas of perhaps, can we do some identification of the roadway with level curbing, not raised curbing, so there is a definitive area that's gravel and a definitive area that's lawn, rather than the two running into each other? Is that a compromise so that it still looks sharper, but it doesn't affect what you want to do there?
That is possible in that you can get sloping curbs, and from the station southwards, we would have no problem with that being the case, because vehicles can drive over them. Yeah. Technically, I suppose you could do it in the area that's shown there, but again, why? It works very well as it is. We don't need a defined border. Right.
Any further
We haven't
questions?
had one for 140 years. Why now?
Thanks, Peter. Any further questions? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Just to clarify then, what we see there on the left, that's exactly what you want it to remain. You don't want any sort of worker in there at all?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
We
you.
would like to stay that way. We maintain the grounds ourselves. We've got a couple of very enthusiastic volunteers who like to look after the grounds. They have their tractors and their mowers and things, they can go on and do their thing. As I say, it works very well as it is.
Anyone else? No? Thanks very much, Peter. Very clear, easy to understand. Thanks. Item 4 is petitions. 4.1 is a petition relating to Daranda Terrace Milang Master Plan that Peter just presented on. There's a recommendation that we receive the petition. Move Councillor Livingston. Second, Councillor Oliver. Put to you, all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 5 is questions with notice. There are none. Item 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Scott.
Yes, my question has 2 or 3 parts to it. Was Council aware that last Monday that the Department of Transport would be doing, or their agents or contractors would be doing work on the Middelton to Port Elliot Road that would cause some sort of a blockage that would extend from the railway line in Middelton to Waterport Road? That's one question.
Okay, so, through the chair, we weren't aware before they started the work, no.
Right. Then my second question was, were you aware that there was traffic was being deviated?
Through the chair, our customer service received a lot of phone calls thinking that council was doing the work and that they were not real happy. We knew that was going on after the event.
After the event. Then I'll short circuit it, having been in the middle of all that and witnessed what went on and the high risk situation that occurred on Lovell Road, where it narrows down to one one level, virtually one car's width at the brow, with traffic coming both ways, and in the middle of it was a cyclist on the brow of the hill with a speeding car coming up behind. Can we perhaps make some alterations to the top of Lovell Road so that doesn't happen again, bearing in mind that if something happens at the bridge or close to the bridge in Middelton, that is the only way round to get through to Victor Harbour, unless you go right up round through to Mosquito Hill Road. And if it's going to be used, can we make sure that it, and it only be occasional, but at least it is 2 cars width over the brow of the hill, which is very steep on one side. And I went up very cautiously, but there was a car speeding towards the hill up this long slope, and in the middle was a cyclist, and I didn't dare look back. So can we do anything about that, please?
Through the chair, we can investigate and see what can be done, yes. Investigate.
So do we have any further questions without notice? Councillor Coomans.
Thanks, Mayor Parkes. I've had a resident send me an email requesting some information in relation to the walkway reserves in Seagull Avenue, end of 4th and 3rd Avenue. And I understand that at one time council were considering selling that, and that was not proceeded with. And there was a quote for about $17,000 to do some work on those reserves. Is it in our plans anywhere to do any work on that, or is it something that we need to bring forward into the coming budget?
Through the chair, I saw that email from the resident earlier today. I'm unsure what they're talking about, so it's not on my radar at the moment. I can take that on notice exactly what we're doing now.
Any other questions? Councillor Miller, you want to ask a question? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Worship. I do have 3 questions, actually. I just am interested to know when council members will commence deliberations on the draft annual business plan for 24-25. How many council member priorities forms were received in October last year in response to the invitation to submit them, and when we can be provided with a table summarising that information?
Through the chair, we received 4 forms from council members. In addition, we received 2 emails providing a list of community ideas from one of the council members. All up, we received 144 ideas. We put them through the village conversations to get the community's feedback. We're working on collating all that information, and we'll provide a table with those results to council members during the budget process before we commence, so in the next few weeks.
My second question is, sorry, that's probably what you've just answered, when council members will receive the outcomes of the village conversations in coming weeks. And just finally, the questions that I'm going to ask now, I would like to move that they be included in the minutes, so I'll be seeking to move that way. Can the and they relate to the village conversation that happened in Langhorne Creek. Can the presentation given at the Langhorne Creek Village conversation on the 23rd of November about planning issues be made publicly available? Can administration please confirm as
Just
per
one
the...
at a time. Can we do these one at a time?
Oh, sure. Yes, thank you.
Through the chair, yes, the presentation can be made available on council's website.
My second question is, can you please confirm if council would consider investigations into a general code amendment for the Langhorne Creek region as part of budget deliberations for the 24-25 annual business plan? That was the messaging conveyed at the village conversation.
Yes, council administration will present a budget bid in the 24-25 annual business plan and budget process for a possible code amendment consistent with advice provided at the Langhorne Creek Village conversation.
Thank you. So I understand that emotional notice won't be required. Will the investigations focus on the limited dwelling overlay with a view to opening up more land for dwellings subject to flooding considerations?
Yes, this will be one of the aspects that will be investigated, and there may be other changes considered following these investigations.
And I just seek confirmation that such an investigation is a broad review and not centred around a single land holding.
Yep. Through the chair, yes, administration will be recommending a broad review of Langhorne Creek and the surrounding areas.
And I just seek to understand, is it correct that for a code amendment to be undertaken on a specific piece of land or single land holding, that process would be via a privately initiated code amendment process? And that is, it's not council driven by any interested stakeholders who would need to engage their own private planning consultant at their own expense to assist them to progress a code amendment for a specific piece of land.
Yes, the answer's on the screen because it's a bit complicated, but it is possible, although unusual for council to lead a single allotment code amendment, the council would need to be satisfied that it had a broader community benefits. In this instance, it's likely that a private initiated code amendment would be the best and most timely solution for the landholders.
And thank you. My last question, if a privately initiated code amendment was commenced, would council and the community be consulted?
Through the chair, the answer to that is yes. The PDI Act requires engagement with council and other stakeholders based on an agreed community engagement plan.
Right, so Councillor Miller requested that those questions be recorded. It's not a motion, so you don't move it, you request it. But we need 2/3 of the chamber to support it be in the minutes. So you're happy to include the minutes? Are you sure? Because it never used to be. Is that new? Oh, so let's do it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Yep. Everybody in favour? It's carried unanimously. I'll have to look into that, I reckon. It used to just be a 2/3 thing. So item 7 is notice of motion. 7.1 is a motion from Councillor Peter Oliver regarding debt reduction program. It's moved. Councillor Oliver, do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to note, thank you for your consideration of this. Thank you for your consideration of the motion. I'd like to note that we're spending record amounts of capital expenditure and we're spending a lot more than what our depreciation or rates are recovering. So we're going further into debt. And that debt is now approaching record levels to such an extent that we have to get prudential reviews to borrow any more. So I think I would acknowledge that management is doing all they can or doing a lot to alleviate the situation, but I do think we need to do more. And I think we need to have a formal program and strategy to do it. And I note that we do have formal strategic programs for lots of other things, heritage programs, environmental programs. I think we need one to fix our debt program. So please, I hope that you'll vote in favour of this.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Thornton. Is there any discussion? Councillor Gardner.
I'm going to vote against this, not because I think Councillor Oliver is barking up the wrong tree. I think he's right on song, but I don't want the council staff doing anything extra at this point in time. They're already doing their damnedest to get the debt down. I think we let them get on with the job without putting any more on them.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. In a similar vein to Councillor Gardner, I think we are already doing this. It was covered at the 18th of December 2023 council meeting on page 712 of that agenda in an item called 8.9 Savings and Efficiency Review May 2022 to December 2023. On page 346 of tonight's agenda in the A2040 update, so far over 5 million of savings have been identified. And I just think our administration is laser focused on doing this work, and as are we all as a chamber. I think we need to also look at our revenue generation rather than just debt reduction. But yes, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Maidment.
Yes, I too can't support this. I think it's a little premature. We need to give the administration and the CEO a bit of time here. It's noted that there are some service and function reviews for various operations within our council, which are being undertaken as we speak. And as the officer's comments here, the debt reduction program has already commenced, and it's very difficult to sell surplus land and buildings, as we've seen in the past 5 years. So we have to be very careful on which facilities we put up for sale. So I won't be voting for this either.
Councillor Coomans.
Thanks, Mayor Parkes. Look, I will support this because I think it's actually reinforcing what admin are already doing. And in relation to surplus land, I think we've got a pretty bad history in terms of having land for sale, and when it comes to the decision time, we suddenly go weak in the knees and don't go proceed with it. So I would like this to be something that we do, and as I said, it actually reinforces what staff are doing already. So I support what Councillor Oliver is trying to do here.
Councillor Scott.
Excuse me. I think there's an amalgam between what Councillor Maidment and Miller and Gardner have said. Yes, we've obviously got to reduce debt, and I commend Councillor Oliver for endeavouring to do so, but I again don't want to see the staff go through this whole business of trying to sell land and then the public say no. Plus, I am absolutely, completely and utterly against selling land to council debt. That land belongs to the district, to successive generations, and it is not for one generation to capitalise on that just to counteract what some would see as bad management. I won't argue about whether it was bad management or not, but that's what the public might see. And I think we've got to do other things to do it. And that land, I'm very supportive of selling land to buy land. And some needs to go in Strathalbyn now to balance what we bought in Strathalbyn. I don't mind that at all, but just selling off the land that belongs to successive generations just to correct the imbalance now, I'm absolutely and totally opposed to.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to exercise your right of reply, or no? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. So Councillor Oliver is calling for a division. Just remind elected members that a division is a new vote. I'd ask those voting in the affirmative to please stand. So we have Councillor Oliver and Councillor Coomans. Thank you. Those voting in the negative, would you please stand? Now we have Councillor Thornton, Councillor Scott, Councillor Miller, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Maidment, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner, so it is lost. (7.2) is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding CWMS and Water Assets, the business case. It's moved by Councillor Oliver. Do you wish to speak to it?
Your Worship, I just wish to declare a material conflict of interest due to my employment, and I'll leave the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the CWMS is a big deal. It requires a lot of work in the future. It's also a great opportunity for us. I'm only asking for a business case so we can understand the issues a lot better. I'm not proposing that we actually do anything. I do want to note to you that we are using the CWMS funds that are generated to offset general revenue or to offset our costs. So last year it was $2 million or thereabouts that was used or plugged from the CWMS to offset our costs. I don't think it's appropriate. I think we should be hiving that money off to invest in the future and also look at other opportunities for commercial trading of water and also working with other councils and other organisations in regard to water. We already have the second biggest water company in South Australia, which is underneath the radar. How about we put it on the radar and we make it close to number one? Thank you.
So do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Coomans?
If I could speak. Yeah. Thanks, Mayor Parkes. Look, I support this because it's been our thinking for a long, long time that the CWMS scheme ought to be separate from the rest of our financial plans. And indeed, I think it's sort of been looked at in that way. I think the strategic aim for CWMS is to be cost neutral. As Councillor Oliver said, it is making some money, but not all residents in Alexandrina benefit from it, because there are only certain towns who are actually part of it. I'm one of those, and it's a great system. I've just said what I was going to say. So look, I support this, and I think it should be a separate business unit, and I think a business case will confirm that. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
May I ask a question of the CEO? Isn't council staff already looking at this as a separate entity?
Through the chair, we are looking at having a look how we can structure the CWMS system. So this will formalise something that we're currently working on. It will also give us an opportunity to detail exactly how the financials work, because it's not a profit-making machine. We do look at it as a long-term business venture, and bringing back a business case will show exactly how it works and how it will benefit if it was separate altogether, and so on. So it's a good motion.
So another question, Your Worship. So us, that is the Chamber, asking staff to provide a business case for the CWMS, is that relevant or irrelevant at this point?
Through the chair, it's relevant. It's something that you need to inform yourself on. Is there opportunities to do things better? So this is exactly what that motion does.
Councillor Livingston.
Just a question. In addition to the current work that administration are doing, does this motion enhance that in the way that it also provides a business case for the water assets as well as a CWMS?
Through the chair, it's a body of work. It will take time, but it's something that needs to be done. It hasn't got a timetable on it at the moment. It's not something that we need to rush and do before the annual business plan and budget process is on. It's probably going to be the focus of administration for the next period of time. But knowing that this motion is on the table will enable us to collate a lot of the information that we're working on at the moment and present it to Council for consideration.
Any further? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I'd like to commend Councillor Oliver for this motion. It is certainly an important piece of work for our council and communities. I understand that this is a really significant piece of work, and it will take a lot of time to work through. So I'm certainly in support of this motion, with the understanding that it will be something that takes time. So my expectation of our administration would certainly not be that this is sort of rushed through. I would support it with the understanding that this is going to take a bit of time and will probably be on our radar for the coming years, I imagine. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to use your right of reply? No. So I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So Councillor Miller can come back, please. So 7.3 is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding the holiday rubbish services and recycling bins at public locations. There's a motion there moved by Councillor Oliver. Would you speak to that?
Yes, please, and thank you for considering this motion. The summer holiday period's always been a period of consternation for rubbish pickup. Our population swells quite dramatically. I've received a lot of feedback from particularly people who have holiday homes that only come down here for a part of the year, and they want to have a full and complete rubbish service over the summer period. So really, I'm only asking that we consider 3 additional general waste bin lifts. It reads like it's a big task. It's been presented as a big task. It's only 3 lifts that I'm looking for. I'm looking for, at the tourist locations, We already have some locations are getting bins picked up 3 or 4 times a day. I'm looking for that to be consistently applied across all the beachside locations and the spillovers. Recycling bins, it seems to be an excuse regime. We can all do it at home, but we can't do it in public. So I'd like to see, very simply, like many other councils are doing, recycling bins simply put out in the public. And finally, I'd like to thank the drivers at the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority for their fantastic service and their great can-do attitude. They're just fabulous. So thank you for your consideration.
Do we have a second for that? Councillor Livingston?
Yep. I also agree with Councillor Oliver. I received feedback as well from local residents that were quite upset with the rubbish collection over the summer period. I do understand that the reason why we don't have a weekly pickup anymore, one of the reasons is to educate the community on using the different bins correctly to minimise waste. However, when these tourist locations are impacted, I believe that we need to do something. So I'm full support.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
I too have received over the years negative comments about the blue bin situation, and there is just such a deluge of people invading the place at that time that I just think it does. We just have to do something better. We've been fortunate; it's been fairly cool this year, but you have a run of hot weather like they've been having in the north, and then only picking those blue bins up every fortnight. It's just, and then we go to great lengths to improve a park or something, and but we don't worry about the bins. The other concern that I have in relation to number 3, the recycling bins to be introduced in public locations, it's a great idea, but I have a feeling that the contamination will neutralise, from my experience on the waste boards, that all the time it's the contamination that's what, and all it'll do is they'll probably just put the contents of that bin into the total waste, and it'll go off to landfill. And until the education is successful with everybody, which probably it never will, but you hope it will, I don't think we're going to gain much by having that separately. But I commend Councillor Oliver for raising it. I mean, it's a great idea, but contamination, people don't realise that just how much contamination there is. And more importantly, the cost of correcting the contamination is prohibitive. So that's, I don't want to throw cold water on the idea, but I just think we have to face reality. But apart from that, and I certainly commend how those fellas drive those trucks like they do, especially in amongst the traffic during the summer. They make it an art form, and they are to be commended. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Parks. Just a question. In motion 1, it talks about rubbish collection frequency for households be varied to weekly pickup, and yet the heading is about bins in public locations. I'm a bit confused. Are we talking a bin a week for everyone in Alexandrina who currently gets it for 2 weekly, or is it only in public locations? I'm not sure. And then I've got some comments on it.
Through the Chair, number 1 is talking about your domestic waste, so every household. Number 2 is talking about the public bins.
Okay, well, I guess the heading is a bit confusing then, because it's talking about public locations. I've got a little bit of experience in this, because over the Christmas break there was one heck of a lot of comments about the roadside collection system, and the first bit that was really confusing was because of Christmas Day being on a Monday, all the collections were moved forward one day. So if you had a collection on a Friday, it happened to be on a Saturday. Advertising for that wasn't particularly good, and there was so much confusion that it was just, yeah. So I got quite a number of complaints about it, and at the same time people are complaining why aren't we getting weekly pickup of the waste to landfill. So I called a community meeting. We had about 25 people turn up, and the CEO of Fleurieu, Simon Grenfell, came along, and also General Manager of Infrastructure, Andy Baker, came along as well. And it was very interesting. One of the important comments I think that Simon made was that they've done a number of surveys of bins, and it shows, right up until now, that 31% of the material in the waste to landfill should have gone in the green bin. In other words, it's food organics. So what's missing here is not a bin every week. What's missing is some education so that people really do put their food waste, food organics and green organics into the green bin and not into the waste bin. And that's what's been happening. So one of the things that was taken away from that meeting is that he was going to look at the advertising and make sure that communications with community is a lot better, and hopefully that will happen. But now, look, I'm going to foreshadow a motion that, in accordance with the officer's recommendations, that before we do anything, that we really do ask for a report, that the report looks at the pros and cons, the possible trial in conjunction with Cittaslow, and also the associated costs to council. Remember, we're only one of 4 that own this Fleurieu, and the last thing I want to do is for us to go out on our own. This needs to be a consortium, so I'd like all that to be in the report. So rather than supporting this, I think I'm going to ask for my foreshadowed motion to take preference over this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, Councillor Oliver. I think this is such an important issue. Along with some of the other comments here in the chamber tonight, I certainly cannot support number 1 just based on the important initiative of reducing our general waste. And it is so important. We had a really successful year last year, as reported from to the chamber by Simon Grenfell, that really reduced our waste to landfill and increased our food organic waste, which is so important. So I really think it is about our community being more educated to utilise their bins over the summer. I understand there is also additional general waste pickups on request that people can apply to Fleurieu for additional collections of their general bin at a cost to them if that is absolutely necessary for them. I had a lot of complaints last year about, this is to point 2, about the peaks of tourist locations within Alexandrina. I thought this year that the service was very responsive, and I didn't receive complaints from the community this year. So, and certainly from the description in the officer's comments, I think that what was tried this year was adequate from my perspective. Recycling bins in public locations, I absolutely want to see a report on that, so I look forward to a foreshadowed motion if that comes. And of course a thank you is always good, but at this stage, if we're voting on this as a bulk, I won't be able to support it in general. Thank you.
Councillor Miller, did you want?
Thank you, Worship. I appreciate why this has come forward, but I have a question before I just debate. If this is successful, does that mean we're adding $159,000 to our operating budget for next year? Okay. With that in mind, page 337 of tonight's agenda has a draft waste management bylaw and public litter bin policy. Work to progress creation of policies is underway. Maybe we should wait for that policy position before we introduce recycling bins in public locations. This is decision making on the run. I won't be supporting this for the reason that a policy is being developed, and also because it's adding, without any kind of analysis, $159,000 to our operating budget before we've even entered deliberations on the 24-25 annual business plan. Our operating budget is currently in deficit. which I understand to be in the vicinity of $250,000, but there's no, that's budgeted for, but there's no budget review 2 yet, which we won't see until February. Additionally, we don't actually know where we landed last year. Councillor Oliver's 2 previous motions on notice are about reducing debt and service efficiencies. I am very aware that without the wastewater service figures in our consolidated accounts, our operating deficit would be approaching 7 figures. We're already spending way more than we earn. If the wording were changed to reflect a report be prepared, and I acknowledge Councillor Coomans has foreshadowed that, as per the officer commentary, and that it be considered in the entire budget mix, then I could consider supporting this. But as it is currently worded, no. This locks us in without an analysis and understanding our other priorities. I understand that regular reviews occur, and I would hope that the same thing happens after this holiday season. I would imagine that Fleurieu will be doing that. I believe the officer commentary is spot on, that a report be provided to Council on the introduction of public recycling bins, including the pros and cons, a possible trial in conjunction with Chitterslow, and all associated costs to Council. It would be financially irresponsible, I believe, to lob this straight into our operating budget, $159,000, without some sort of analysis. This isn't a trial, this is a lock it in, and I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Before you have your right of reply, I'll just say, Councillor Coomans hit it on the head. The problem's education. No question about it. Putting blue bins out every week will just increase contamination and increase landfill. And landfill is the biggest killer that Fleurieu have. I had people ringing me over the weekend, over the Christmas break as well, complaining about their blue bin wasn't picked up and it was stinking because all the fish bits are in there. I said, well, the brown bin, that your green bin, and that your green bin, your organics bin, which goes every week, is where the food's supposed to go. Anything that's possible should go in that bin. And your recycling bins for all the other stuff, like your gift papers and your cardboard boxes and everything else. You should have next to nothing going in those blue bins. So, exactly right, and Chitterslow have several times offered to supervise a trial of recycling bins in public places. I mean, the places I've always wanted to have recycling bins in a public place is where Councillor Oliver's business is, at Sugars Beach. Everything they sell, they package as 100% compostable. And we put them into public bins and they go to landfill. And I know he and his wife also collect a lot of the bins in their leased area themselves and put it in their big skip bin. But out down the road, you see all the bins overflowing with all this compostable produce. It's a shame, but it's something we've got to trial. But do you want to do your thing?
Yeah, thanks everyone. A lot of great discussion there, and it really just reflects what a big issue this is for people. And I'll accept the wisdom of Councillor Coomans, and I'd like to change this to be request a report in regard to these issues. Is that possible? Too late? All right.
That closes the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? So that's lost. Now, Councillor Coomans, you had a foreshadowed motion. Do you have that motion? I do. And you wish to move it, please?
I do. That a report be provided to Council on the introduction of public recycling bins, including the pros and cons of the introduction, possible trial in conjunction with Chitterslow, and all associated costs to Council. And I don't think in that it mentions anything about the waste to landfill for residents. I'm just wondering whether that, I don't think we need that in anyway. Or is that covered? Sorry.
Through the chair, it doesn't cover the weekly pickup stuff, but that's something that Fleurieu do come back and give us a breakdown of exactly what occurred over the summer break. But my whisper to the Mayor, which he caught me doing, was suggesting that possibly number 4 in there, commending the drivers, should also be moved down. I was also going to suggest that the commending the drivers also be moved into your motion.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm happy to move 1 to 4.
The only other thing I would suggest, as Nigel just said, anything I would suggest to go in there as well, that we also receive a report from Fleurieu regarding an improvement to their communications plan.
I think that's very wise, and they did undertake to do that, that they would look at aspects of their communications, because that was a bit of a disaster, that Christmas period with moving things forward by a day.
So we have that foreshadowed motion. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Nicholson? Is there any discussion? So we've had a bit. Seconded, Councillor Nicholson. So if there's no discussion, I'll put the foreshadowed motion to you. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? That's carried unanimously. Done. 7.4 is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding a Goolwa dog park, scoping and consultation. There's a motion moved by Peter Oliver. Sorry, Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly, there is a big groundswell of movement of people very interested in a dog park in Goolwa, and everyone's noting that all the public areas are sort of being increasingly used, smaller space, people sensitive to dog issues. I think that it sort of says what we want to achieve. Please vote in favour.
So do we have a seconder, Councillor Livingston? Yep.
I agree with Councillor Oliver, and it also goes to an issue that we've previously debated regarding dogs on public ovals as well, and this may eliminate that issue, especially in the Goolwa region.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans?
Thank you, Mayor Parkes. Look, in principle, I don't have an issue with this. My issue is more to do with how it will be paid for, because this is one of those projects I think that's nice to have. It certainly isn't essential, and given our financial status at the moment, it's not something that I would like to see happen now. However, this could be an opportunity to actually locate some land in the general area of where the dog park may be going, and identifying that as something that's surplus to council requirements, and it could be then sold, and the proceeds would go into the dog park. So the purpose of the sale is for the purpose of building a dog park. Now, I reckon that's probably a reasonable way of convincing the community that if you do sell that land, that's where the money's going to. It's not just going into general revenue. I'd sort of like to have something like that weaved into the motion. I'll give you a good example where this works so well. Our local CFS was, I was speaking to the cap one day and I said, if you had a project, what would you like? And he said, we'd love to have a training pavilion so that we can do our training in there and what have you. And it just so happened that a community group were looking to raise some money for them. And I said to them, well, this is their project. And that project was the nexus that got them their $16,000 so they could build that pavilion, because the community just got on board because it was a great idea. You weren't just raising money for the sake of raising money. And I think if you've got a purpose for selling some land or disposing of some assets, and you've got this as the purpose for it, I think it's got a much better chance of not affecting our financial status and getting something positive in the air at the same time. So at this stage, I'm not going to support this, but if there was some way of weaving in that we were looking at some way of financing it other than just out of our normal rates and other revenues, then I'd be supporting that.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Your Worship. While a dog park would be valuable for many dog owners and their dogs, and I've got a dog who is quite wicked, my view is that at the present time it's not appropriate for council to be requesting such an item. The community might like one as a desirable thing, but frankly it is not an essential. We're facing rising costs, and until we've really got a better grip on spending, I'm not going to be voting in favour of this motion. One of the things that we need to remember that in Goolwa there is a Rotary Club, and they have earmarked part of the park on Beach Road, and they're already planting trees and shrubs to have a reflective area, but they have some plans for the future for the whole of that area, and one of the things that they have in mind is a dog park. So why would we, council, go ahead with a dog park when one of our community organisations has a plan for the future? If you think about Port Elliot Dog Park, that was not a council dog park. The community got together. Admittedly, Ruth was the driving force there at the time, but they raised the money and they drove that project until they've got the park that they've got now. Okay, council gave them the land, but they've done all the work, and I think we need to expect that our community will take responsibility. If they have a dog, then they need to take responsibility. If they want a park, they need to take responsibility.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. Much respect to Councillor Gardner for those comments. Really interesting to hear that there could be a community group already with plans for a dog park. With that in mind, though, I'm still inclined to support this motion because I think it would be valuable for the community to see reflected in this chamber something that can be utilised by so many in Goolwa. And I think that if we have a report that looks, you know, from a council perspective at the locations, amenity, facility, all of these things, it might not be that we pick it up in the budget, but it might be something that the community can pick up and say, we understand it was considered, we appreciate that, we understand it won't fit into the budget, perhaps a community group can come in and fill the gap. So I still see value in this, and I don't see it as a, you know, fait accompli that it will end up with us paying for it. I think it's a really valuable exercise. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Thornton?
I think it's a great idea, and noting though that Strath has been waiting for a dog park for a very long time, and it's been discussed a lot negatively and positively in terms of how long it's taken. I think Goolwa would have to come after Strath, and I don't think we should get them excited when it's probably quite far away in terms of budget and being able to do it if we had to undertake it. So, yeah.
Councillor Maidman.
Just a question. I presume this idea of a dog park came up through the village conversations. So would this be a high priority from those conversations, low priority? Was it mentioned a lot, or is this just something that social media has thrown around and says we need a dog park in Goolwa? Because as Councillor Thornton said, we've been waiting for 5 years at Strath, so don't get too excited about how long this will take to get up.
Through the chair, it was put into the village conversations. It was one of those topics that Councillor Oliver brought to our attention. There was comments on it. I think when we did the village conversations, there was lots of different topics, so you couldn't really judge by a few dots whether people were interested or not interested. It is a topic that we're often discussed as well, so it is a topic that our report could provide more of that information on.
Any further discussion? I'll put what I would suggest to you, Councillor Oliver, as the mover of the motion, because we're listening to discussion. It's a good motion. It's a good motion. It's not committing us to go and do anything. But there's no, you could very easily slip in there Goolwa and Strathalbyn on document 1. That gives you a report on both. And while you're doing it, identify the land you're going to put the dog park on, identify the piece of land you're going to sell, and use that money you get from the land you sell as seed funding for a dog park, and let the community go and raise the rest. And that's something you could come back with a report if you wanted to do it. But, yeah, I'm just trying to save some time, but that's the way to go about it, and covers both places, and it just, you know, see how you go. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. everybody's pretty much touched on what I was going to say, so I won't repeat it. I was interested in the village conversations. I think the answer lies in page 538 of tonight's agenda, in the major projects update in the CEO report and the comment about dog parks. Will be considered in open sport, recreation and open space strategy. Proposed to consider dog parks in that. Now, this is, I don't see dog parks as being essential business for a council with the debt levels that we have. We were asked to nominate initiatives last year. This has clearly been test run through the village conversations. It's not clear. We haven't seen the outcomes of the village conversations. We haven't seen what the priorities are in the budget. And I just think in our own agenda tonight, it says dog parks will be considered in an open sport, recreation, open space strategy and consider them in that. So for that very reason, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
I think what Councillor Gardner said was pretty much what I was tending to comment on, particularly the Port Elliot one. I'm astounded that the people are expecting a dog park to be turned on. There was considerable effort put into that dog park at Port Elliot. I think there was certainly some council support given, but you know, to sort of just a flick of the fingers and say we want a dog park and when's it coming, I think is totally inappropriate. And if people want a dog park, the community, local town dog park committee is formed and they work towards it and raise some money and get on with it, and not expect council to turn on a dog park. I'm afraid and then sell land to pay for the dog park. My goodness, it's getting worse by the minute. So take Port Elliot as a template.
Question, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. I'm just picking up on your suggestion about including both Goolwa and Strath in the report. And you also mentioned about identifying land for the park, land that could be sold. Was that your suggestion as well? So that we're looking at selling something to do this?
You might be able to sell a small portion of land and use that for seed funding, not to do the whole project. Seed funding to get it moving, and then it's up to the community to raise the rest of the money. But all this is doing is seeking the information to enable the next step. It's not committing to go and spend any money other than bringing a report back.
Okay, so my question is will that be part of the report, or does that need to be in the motion so it becomes part of the report?
Through the chair, part of the motion does talk about bringing back the costs. We can also talk about other land in that. Given that I've listened to the chamber tonight, I will include it in the report.
Okay, now the part of the question is Strath included in this report?
Through the chair, what we've got at the moment is a location identified at Strathalbyn. There's been consultation done at it. It's something that we'll be bringing back during the annual business plan and budget process. I don't think it needs a separate report, given Strathalbyn's a lot further down the track than Goolwa.
Mr. Oliver, you wish to close the discussion?
Thank you. Again, it's only looking for a report to be brought. This is a sensitive issue that's come from a groundswell of people and it has the potential to be divisive. And if we can get on the front foot and get a consultative opportunity to get people involved with it, whether it be a community organisation, whatever, I think that would be fantastic. At the moment, it's bitching in the background about what people need. Can I just mention, everyone, that we collect $80,000 surplus in dog fees each year above the cost of looking after them. $80,000. Where does that $80,000 go? And I might be wrong on the number, don't quote me, but it goes into general revenue, doesn't it? It doesn't get spent on dogs. And I'd like to just finally say that, you know, dogs are like children. We provide playgrounds for children because they need to play, and I think we should do the same for the dogs. Thank you.
That closes the discussion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's lost. So 7.5 is Councillor Scott, a motion relating to the Milang Historical Society lease. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I think it's around the 20-odd years that, no, they were established in 1979, the Historical Society, and they have occupied that portion of land, and particularly what's known as a scout hall, I believe, for at least 20 years. And they've been occupying there under a sublease from the Milang Oval Committee, who have leased the whole of the land from the council. As we heard earlier in the year, or earlier last year, there is a request for that lease to be changed, the current lease to be converted to a lease directly with council and over the same portion of land. Now, there has been an alternative suggestion put forward, and I think generated by our staff here, and I can understand, and I'm certainly not being critical of what they've done. They've tried to come up with a compromise, but I believe it's not needed. That group run extremely well. They've got quite a big membership, but an actual core membership of 25 that do the work, and they meet there. They're in there nearly every day of the week. And if you recall back when we had them here, and that plan that was given, which is in actual fact in front of me here now, it is so logical that you go in the gate, and on the left, all around the track, is the Historical Society, and on the right and out in front is the Oval group, or the Oval area. It's not as if they're trying to take over half the Oval, and to have a quicker match you've got to try and move some immovable piece of ancient machinery. It's not that at all. It's what they've got, it's existing use, and it works extremely well, and they are from a voluntary organisation point of view, they're very polished operators, and they are doing an amazing job in preserving the history of the district. They're not asking for a lot. They just want it to be the same as it's been. They're not trying to encroach on anything more. They just want it the same as it's been, but with a direct lease from council. And this, I understand, assists them in getting grants from authorities. And I'm not entirely familiar with all that side of it, but that's what I've been told, that it does assist them. I can see no negatives because they're occupying the same spot. It's just purely a technicality, and whether they're having a lease directly with council or whether there's another layer in it where they go through the Oval Committee who then go back to the council. When we're trying to keep things simple, we're trying to reduce red tape. That's what everybody's saying, just reduce red tape. Here's a classic example, and I think they're worthy of our support. And if anyone was down there at Milang yesterday and on Saturday, I think you would have to agree. I know there are a lot of visiting things there, but for them to arrange a thing like that and run it like they do every year, and what's more, they even had fridge magnets out advertising next year that they were handing out to people. Talk about being on the front foot. They're a well-oiled machine. So I urge you to support it, and I'll have some very small closing remarks afterwards, please.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Miller? You're speaking to us?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I fully support what Councillor Scott is trying to achieve here. We had a deputation in July, and we've seen correspondence back or between the Historical Society and administration, but we haven't seen the committee's communications. But I agree that we put it out as it is now, get some community feedback on it. We had an email today about an incident from 2010, I think it was. I'd like to look forward with this. I think we need to progress this. And so and I know we haven't seen the leases, but if they're based on what exists now, just giving them a separate lease direct with council on their own, I think that's more than sufficient. We take it to the community and we see what the community thinks before we finalise the leases. I wouldn't support a second entrance. I just think that's unnecessary spending. I think in a lease you can work out who's responsible for what when it comes to those shared spaces and access to the toilets. And I think we've overcomplicated possibly something that lets us take leadership and support both these groups, and separate leases I think will achieve that, and I'd like to hear what the community thinks. So thank you, Councillor Scott, for bringing this forward.
Councillor Gardner.
I'd have to agree with both Councillor Scott and Councillor... Sorry. One of the things that has happened just recently is a phone call from the group. There was shock and they were highly indignant with the council staff's response to their hopes for a new lease. They don't, as you say, Councillor Miller, they don't want another entrance. They don't want more expense. They simply want the lease that they originally put in. And I think the sooner we get on with having a community engagement, the better.
Councillor Coomans.
Blind Freddie could have seen this coming, because back in July last year, this council, I think, made a bad decision in having two leases for two groups sharing a common sort of precinct. The two groups are at odds with one another, and now it's the council who's the meat in the sandwich in all of this. If that whole precinct had one committee of management who can sort these kinds of issues out themselves, and then come to council and let us know what their thinking is, rather than us having to be the umpires in this thing. It wouldn't have happened if we didn't allow two leases. It should have been just the one lease, and now it's taking up a lot of unnecessary council staff time in trying to put together two leases, in trying to identify whose area is what, who has responsibility for what, who looks after the toilets, and so forth. Look, I'm going to foreshadow a motion here in relation that it go back to the two committees, that they work it out together and reach a practical consensus, and then seek council's support and maybe some community engagement if really necessary. Let them sort it out and come back to us in terms of how this thing should proceed, because having two leases is not working.
Councillor Maidment.
I take your point, Councillor Coomans. It's not two leases, it's one lease with a sublease. So the idea of the Historical Society wanting a separate lease, as I mentioned before, they are able to go to grant funding without having to go cap in hand to the Oval Committee. I've walked the site. The second entrance is ridiculous as to where you would even think about putting that opposite a T-junction or near a blind corner. That just won't work. This group have occupied the site since 1987, I believe, and they have renovated the so-called Scout Hall, which ceased existence in 2001. They've put air conditioning in there, and our staff are between a rock and a hard place here, because they have been trying to mediate on all issues with going back and forth to both committees, and it hasn't worked. So I think let the community sort it out, let the sublease stand as it and become the new lease, and I'll be voting for it.
Any further discussion? So, Councillor Scott, do you wish to use your right of reply?
it's not difficult to achieve what they're asking for. There are 2 leases now, a primary lease and a sublease. We're just asking for those leases to be changed so that it's clear cut and not one subservient to the other. This group have got the runs on the board. They're not fly-by-nighters. They're not going to cause us grief. We'll get this lease signed off. You won't hear of them again for another, if it's 7 + 7 or whatever it's going to be, you won't hear from them till the last +7's been expired. So I just think that our motto in this council is preserving the past and securing the future. They are making an unparalleled job at preserving the past, and all they're asking us to do is help them to secure the future. And I say, let's just get on and do it.
Close the discussion. So we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So item 8 is administration reports. 8.1 is the Goolwa North Code Amendment submission. There is a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Councillor Oliver, you wish to move it?
I wish to move it with a couple of amendments, please. The amendments I'd like to do, I'd like to amend point 2 from does not support, and I'd like to replace those words with vehemently object, because I don't believe that the community wants this at all. In fact, the community is right against it. And then further on, and I'm not sure how to do this, I'd like to change the letter so we don't tell the minister how we're going to solve his problems. I'd like the letter to say, we object vehemently, and here's the issues, and that's it. And we can go back to them, if he votes yes, we can go back to him at another time and say, well, this is how we think you can manage those issues. But I think we need to send a very clear message to the minister that we'll decide how our community develops, and we'll decide what houses are here and where they're placed, not him. Thank you.
So the recommendation refers to the letter, but doesn't, in the actual recommendation, it doesn't, the letter's an attachment, so we can, but it refers to it as attachment 2, so we would need to bring attachment 2 up on the screen and look at what you wanted to change in the attachment so that it can be part of the thing. That's what Nigel said. So.
Yep, so I'd like to leave in the bits that where we talk about the desire for infill, etc., and the issues, but to delete the...
Through the chair, what we've done on the screen at the moment is just brought up the letter and we've put paragraphs, numbers next to it. So just to help us out, if we go back up to the top, you're saying keep 1, on 3 you want to change it to be resolved, whatever you said. Yep, to change it in that place. So 4 would stay the same, 5 would stay the same. Keep going for me, Tim. 6 and 7 would stay the same. I'm going to do it, yeah. Where do we start to change it for you, Councillor Waller?
Thinking more of what was in the body of the report.
Is it from you wanting to remove...
The contingency onwards, please.
So you're saying remove paragraph 15, 16.
You can't speak to it. So we're in the process. Give me time to do it. Please.
So if we go back to the motion and then we move, can you just tab back to the motion for me? So, but
make sure. So Councillor Oliver, you first, before we go back to the motion, are you happy with the changes to the letter? Yes. Yes or no? Yes, right. Then we can go back.
yeah, so then if we put in a new number 3, before it starts talking about attachment 2. Yeah, give me another 3 there. So move everything down for me. Yep. So 3, that the letter contained in attachment 2 prior to distribution be changed as follows. And then, yep, give me an A. The change of does not to support to vehemently objects. And then B is the complete removal of the, what was the heading for that one?
Contingency.
Complete removal of the contingency section. And I think that will cover exactly what you're after. Matt, are you happy with what I've just done there? Thank you.
Councillor Oliver, now do you wish to speak to it now that you've moved it and we've made those changes?
No, further, thank you.
Right. So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Maidment. Do we have any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I'd like to request a short-term suspension of meeting procedures, Your Worship. We received this report Thursday. I think it warrants discussion.
Okay. I would like to hear what benefit we're going to get from it, and I'd like to have to vote on it. We've been talking about this for months. We've had workshops, we've had briefings, we've had all sorts of information on it, not just since Thursday. This has been going on for ages. I don't know what we're going to get that we don't already know out of suspending meeting procedures, and you're certainly not going to be making decisions out of procedure. So I can't see the benefit of it, but I'll put it to you all. I'm not in favour of it. I will put it to you all. It will need 2/3 majority. You wish to suspend meeting procedure. If you do, put your hand up, please.
And there's a hand there. So
Oh, that's 5. That's not 2/3.
there was a hand there too.
Well, I can't see it. If it's not up. If it's not up, I can't see it. Okay, so it's close enough. We'll suspend meeting procedures for 5 minutes. And I would like to know what we're going to talk about, because I can't believe what you can talk about that we haven't already heard. Councillor.
I just had a question. Do we have any ability to, during this period or after, what do we need to do to be able to propose amendments that aren't covered by Councillor Oliver's variation to the current motion?
Through the chair, you may seek permission of the mover and seconder to amend it a little bit more. So if there's changes to the letter, you may ask Councillor Oliver and Councillor Nicholson. The seconder, sorry, the seconder, Councillor Maidment, whether they would add to the new section 3.
Okay. I just from my point of view, in particular around health and the impact that our current population in Alexandrina and the Fleurieu in general have on the current health system, I don't believe is emphasised enough in the letter that we're providing. We speak a couple words on it, but to me that's one of the main issues that we have with this code amendment, and which is around sustainable growth, etc. And I also wanted to make it clear from a council point of view that we're not ignoring the need for housing. but we are doing the work that needs to be done around the Goolwa growth plan as well. So the main change that I would like to propose is around the emphasis on our health system, which includes ambulance officers, paramedics, all of the above, how to work that in, and if what the Chamber think about that.
Before we do, you need to remember that on the 24th, in March, the 24th of March, our meeting, you'll be getting a report which will also go to the Minister, which he's agreed to wait for. So he's agreed to sit and wait before deciding on this next report, which will identify all the land within the current boundaries, which is available, which is heaps. But just bear that in mind.
Through the Chair, a slight correction on that. The intent of the Minister is to wait for that growth concept to be completed. We don't have any full agreement that that would be the case.
Sorry, that microphone isn't working.
That's not too far away.
That's not working. I think it's here, one of those.
Sorry, it was just a minor clarification that the Minister has intimated, or sorry, the Minister's office, I should say, has intimated that they'll wait for the growth concept plan before making any determination, but we don't have a formal statement from the Minister.
Thank you, Mayor. I share Councillor Livingston's concerns around our making sure that this letter portrays our concerns around health adequately or strongly, and also our commitment to addressing the housing pressures for people in our area. So I have got a couple of sentences that I'd like to propose to the mover and seconder. One, well, can I propose the wording for... Can I say the wording for people to workshop though?
It's an informal discussion. It's
yep.
Not directing the motion. So you speak to the motion when the motion is reported.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is general discussion about the whole thing.
Will you take some questions? Yeah. All right. I'm just wondering why the consultant chose to put his arguments in relation using scenario B, which is the higher density in all the areas, and why he didn't also look at scenario A, which was a less dense housing and whatever.
Through the Chair, it's a good question. I think it's a question that we've sort of relayed back to the applicants for the proposal as well. Also in terms of the general scope of the amount of area that's being provided. These are questions, but it's really, I guess the bottom, at the end of the day, it's the applicant prerogative as to what they were proposing. We certainly didn't get any justification as to why they were wanting that level of density.
And the other question was in relation to Future North's report. They had a lot of options, but there wasn't an option in there about not doing anything and actually using infill rather than expanding all of the areas. Is there some reason why they didn't do that?
Through the Chair, I would say that Future Urban have obviously been engaged by the landowner, so they're there to represent their best interest and put their best foot forward, so it's probably part of the scope they were given.
And there was some highlights, sorry, I'm just asking, I was just looking on page 35 of our agenda, and it talked about there is ample land available without the need to rezone. That was one comment made. We need to identify minimum land sizes, which in this proposal doesn't, and that the land, that any land left over be rezoned deferred urban. Why would you want to zone it deferred urban, which means in future you're going to do it anyway? You're just putting it away a bit. And the other one was, I'm not sure if you can answer that, but when you talked about a township activity centre, is this the sports field and the two ovals that we had in the previous master plan, which is only just up the road from our multi-million-dollar Goolwa Oval complex. So you're going to have 2 of these within spitting distance. Is that something that you're looking at for as well?
Yeah, through the chair, I'll try and tackle each of those separately. I'll start with the last one first in terms of the recreation areas. That's something that we would be looking at as the population increases and the township expands. There will be a need for there to be more recreation space. And I think if I think of Goolwa, I think about the lack of a rectangular sporting complex that could house soccer and hockey, for instance. Specific to that area. So there is an opportunity, may not be on that Goolwa North land though, it doesn't have to be in that location. The deferred urban area is generally an area that we would apply, and the main reason why that was proposed was that it's outside of the EFPA boundary, and that it would be setting aside land for the future. It wouldn't be able to be activated now. It would need to go through a similar process to what's occurring. And we were mindful as well that the brief really that the state is looking at is having enough land supply available now for the next 15 years, and then a contingency or some additional land for the following 15 years, so for up to 30 years. And a lot of the analysis that we did in-house with the strategic development team, when we looked at the current real growth numbers within Goolwa, I think the 10-year average from memory was about 41 dwellings. And depending on which metric you utilised, there was enough land out there at Goolwa North to accommodate anywhere from about 70 to 170 years worth of growth. So it was well beyond that 30 years that the Minister is pushing for. And that's where that other statement that you referred to about there being sufficient land within the current township boundary, and also provided that we do look at rezoning some of the deferred urban areas, we feel as an administration that there's enough land easily for the next 30 years within that. I'm not sure if I got all of the questions there, Bill, but Councillor Coomans, happy to elaborate if you've got any further.
We're going to go in a short minute because we're over time. So, Councillor Gardner, do you want to say something before we go?
Yes, Your Worship. The key issues that are related in the letter to the Minister, the first one is impact on road infrastructure. It seems to me, it was brought to my attention that one of the main issues was the character of Goolwa. So I imagine that it would be better to have, the main issues that were brought up by the community to be at the top. Sure, local road infrastructure is going to be important, but for people, for our community, it was the character of the township, the pattern of development that's proposed. And Chitterslow, where is Chitterslow? It's sort of, lost halfway down. So, and welfare, our hospitals, where the ambulances, the doctors, the dentists, the police. So it seems to me that those really should be our top priorities. Yeah, oh, right, okay, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Oliver with the changes we discussed, and seconded by Councillor Maidment. Councillor Miller then wanted to go into out of procedure, so we don't consider she's spoken yet. So in that informal discussion, any of those things that you mentioned that you would like to see changed or varied in the item, you can seek the approval of the mover and the seconder to do that, all right? So make it clear. So we're back where we started with Councillor Oliver and Councillor Maidment, who have both spoken, and who wishes to speak? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, just a clarification. If I ask for some additional comments, is that taken as me speaking to it, or do I get to speak to it as well? Okay. This is a very important letter, so I would like to suggest a couple of additions to the mover and seconder, just to make sure that we're really accurately representing how we feel in this chamber and on behalf of our community. So I'd like to propose that we add a comment regarding our commitment to the housing crisis. So in terms of the numbers in the paragraphs, I think it would be...
We'll just work out how we're going to do it. Keep going. Yep.
Sure, thank you. So as Tanya, thank you, has up on the screen there, at paragraph 9, adding in, whilst Alexandrina Council fully recognises the increased housing stress being experienced within our region and across South Australia, the extent of growth proposed by the Code Amendment is considered excessive. The second addition is at paragraph 10, that Alexandrina Council remains committed to collaborating with state and federal governments to ensure everyone has a place to call home. Council's administration have advised me there's ample land and so on. I believe those are two really important additions to this letter, if the mover and seconder would agree.
So the mover and seconder, happy with that? Yep. Okay. All right. So Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Yes, so in the key issues raised, summarised by administration, is it possible to have the character of the township, number 1 or dot 1? The pattern of the development proposed, that is the intensity of housing, Chitterslow concepts, it's down as not consistent with Chitterslow. And welfare, hospitals, ambulance, all those things relating to health. And policing as well, that needs to come under welfare. All the others are really important, but I think our community actually wanted those as top priorities. Seems to me to be sensible to put them up the top if the mover and seconder would be in agreement.
Yes, please.
Move and seconder, happy with that? Yep. So Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. Can you just please confirm for me who has spoken in this debate so far?
Oliver, Councillor Maynard, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner.
Yes, please. I have a question. Could you please just confirm before I speak, when council members have had an opportunity in the chamber to consider this, and I just missed my opportunity during suspension of meeting procedures to seek some clarification. So I just would like to know, before I speak, when this has come to the chamber and we've had ample opportunity to consider this, seeing we only saw it Thursday night. Thank you.
You want to use mine for a second?
Through the chair, I'm just sort of thinking back to the amount of times that we have introduced this to the chamber. We had at least one information session where we had the consultants come in and talk about it. It's definitely been referenced in a few of the other meetings, but I can only recall the one information session where it was the topic of discussion. Through the chair, there has been other related matters, but in terms of this specific code amendment, I think it's only been the once, but yes, there's been other matters where it's been referred to, particularly the Goolwa growth area concept plan discussions. Yes, indeed. Yes, yep.
So, you wish to speak to it now?
I do, thank you, Worship. If we're talking about the Goolwa North Code Amendment, my understanding is that we have had one briefing, and at that briefing, when it ended, the CEO was going to do a ring around and get our views, and my views have certainly never been canvassed on this in a formal meeting. So with that in mind, I would like to move an amendment, please, based on the wording that I provided this afternoon. It doesn't change anything. It just brings front and centre what we were talking about before about the Goolwa the Goolwa Growth Concept Plan. So I did send an email saying that I would like, in between 1 and 2, note the Goolwa North Concept Plan prepared by Council following a July 2023 meeting with senior department staff at Planning and Land Use Services to assist the department to inform the Minister for Planning regarding the Goolwa-related PICA. Will be presented to Council for endorsement in March 2024, and this concept plan, once endorsed, should be used to guide the future growth of Goolwa. I would like to see that front and centre in the resolution and not in the letter. It is in the letter. I mean, if we remove the contingency discussion, it does weaken that a little bit. And I will speak now on this topic. This was an incredibly interesting report, and I really appreciate the state government allowing time for council to prepare and consider this. I thank the administration for this comprehensive report. It is unfortunate we've only had a very short time to consider all of this information. It's interesting in learning more about the historical decisions that were made, or as is the case of the DPA 2016 outcome not made. But there have been several chances here and they've been missed. The infrastructure investment comments on page 61 are telling. I think there's an expectation from state and federal governments that they now want a return on their investment in the Goolwa High School, in the Goolwa Oval Precinct, in the South Road and Victor Harbour Road upgrades. I am comforted by the reference to infrastructure deeds, but I need to understand those more. This is consistent with the future growth areas, and I just wish we'd had the Goolwa North Concept Plan work more completed. We can't advocate for affordable housing and then not support initiatives like this. I note the affordable housing overlay will be applied and at least 15% must be affordable housing. I guess one of the positives in private code amendments is that someone pays for all of this analysis and research to be done. This is in the town boundary and outside the FPA area. They're two critical considerations. Developer-led planning generally doesn't lead to the highest and best community outcomes. We haven't seen the Goolwa Growth Goolwa Growth concept plan yet. We need to have separate rates for infrastructure provision for sport and recreation to fund all of this. If we go with infill, and I'm not speaking against infill, in current areas, we will miss that opportunity for revenue to provide community infrastructure, road and transport infrastructure, and sporting and recreation infrastructure, and not let alone our wastewater service. We will have this infill happening at ad hoc. The land is not even available unless the owners decide to make it available and develop it. I note the reference to medical services. They're state and federal responsibilities. Our concerns are a little closer to home. Infrastructure provision, recreational assets, upgrades that will be required to existing assets, and not to mention service levels. I'll advocate for planned, orderly, funded growth that is accompanying infrastructure, both social and physical plans. We can't just be thinking about the next 3 or 4 years, or even 15 years. If we don't plan our community and we allow ad hoc development by stealth, or perhaps incremental is a better description, then we will end up with urban sprawl or recreational and sporting facilities that are landlocked and not fit for purpose. Has any of the land been identified for recreational community wellbeing purposes? And, you know, when I was writing my debate, I was flipping and flopping. I was for it, I was against it. There were so many pros and cons. I'm sure that many are thinking about the next 4 years, but I'm thinking long term and what this beautiful area should look like in 30 years' time. That's what I'm here for, to have a vision and strategy that is forward-looking. If we're serious about being custodians of our community's assets, we need to be at the table and pragmatic and realistic. We have to have a contingency. If we think that they won't approve some kind of development in some code amendment, I think we are dreaming. Is there any opportunity that the landowner or developer will donate a portion of this land for community land? Opposing this is the easy option, the popular option, the option that will get you re-elected and take the heat off you. The harder path here is collaborative, using all the technical knowledge and professionalism of our planners and administration to plan for the future. I know this all won't happen quickly, but we need to plan it out now and have a concept plan endorsed before we can even consider this, I think. We have an ageing population in this area. We need somewhere for their families to live. Infill in Goolwa, to my mind, goes against the Chittislow principles. You will be concentrating more and more people in that area. This land is identified as potential for growth. Probably one of the benefits of this is that it's all happening at once and it can be a planned community. And I'm just about finished. We've got to provide for transparent and cost sharing of future needs in this community. We need to take note of the concluding discussion and the financial implications of these recommendations. The Minister's condition of approval is that infrastructure deeds be agreed to prior to approval, meaning the cost of any required infrastructure works will be shared by an agreement with the developer and, where relevant, state government. As discussed in the body of the report, the cost implications of some of the alternative growth options are likely to be much higher, with less scope for leveraging contributions from developers if we stick with infill. It'll be fragmented and it will only be available if owners currently make it available. Pages 51 and 52 are important pages. The going against the Chittislow principles means that land is separate, fragmented ownership is unlikely to deliver adequate growth. Intensification of development within townships will likely change their character. Ad hoc augmentation of infrastructure and reduced ability to leverage a developer contributions means our existing ratepayers will be funding this. and growth on Hindmarsh Island is constrained by a single access and egress. So I've had to say all this now because I'm speaking to my amendment because I won't get another opportunity. So I'm just asking that you add what I've asked to be asked, that there's much stronger reference to the Goolwa Growth Concept Plan that the Minister has, but which don't have in writing as I understand it, agreed will be considered before he makes his decision. My amendment is asking for that to be front and centre in our resolution so that people reading this don't have to...
So you're well and truly over time.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that, but I didn't get an opportunity to speak.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I understand. So I'm finished now. I just would hope someone will support including my amendment.
I didn't make the legislation. It's in the law. So we can handle that, what you want in there, with a variation rather than a formal, rather than another motion, an amendment. Providing the mover, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Maidment, the seconder, are happy to include...
No, point of order, Your Worship. I want it as an amendment, please. I've moved an amendment.
Okay, you've said it. It will be an amendment. So, there's an amendment. Is there a seconder, Councillor Nicholson? Is there any discussion on the amendment? If not, I will put the amendment. All those in favour? In favour? Against? It is lost. So we go back to the original recommendation, and is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Coomans.
I haven't spoken yet, but I do want to ask some questions which I asked when we were in the informal part, and it's on page 35 in relation to recommendations for submission, and it talks about it makes a statement that there is ample land available within the Goolwa Township boundary. Is that incorporated in the information that's going to the Minister?
Through the Chair, from recollection, yes.
Okay, and the second one was request a reduction in the amount of land to be immediately zoned for residential purposes to be more in line with providing a rolling 15-year thing. Will that be part of the submission as well?
Through the Chair, I think as amended it probably isn't.
Well, that was an important part that you mentioned before.
Yeah, I think the other important, through the Chair, I think the other important consideration is that the report that contains a lot of that information would also be forwarded and publicly available for the Minister's Office to be able to get that additional information if required.
Okay, and the other question is, will it also contain that a statement that the remainder of the affected area be rezoned to deferred urban? Because if it is, I'd like that removed.
Through the Chair, I'd have to see a copy of the draft to see whether that is included. I don't recall.
Removed?
It was part of the contingency argument, yes.
So that will be removed? Yeah, okay, that's good. Look, I totally agree with that we vehemently oppose this. I'm just wondering whether vehemently is a word that's common use in this sort of thing, or is there a better word, is it an appropriate government type of word that you're using, even though I totally agree with that it's a very strong objection to the proposed, that's the meaning of it, and whether vehemently is the right word to use. But other than that, I think this is very sad. That we really needed a lot of time to consider this one. It is important. If it takes until midnight, I don't care, because we've got to get this right. Because, we've opposed this from day one, and we've had lots of reports that have said the contrary, and we've opposed it. Former councillors have fought hard against it. And we just want to make sure that the voice that we send to the Planning Minister is very, very strong and consistent, and it needs to be unanimous what we're saying, that this is just not on. This is ridiculous. It really is.
Nigel thinks the word's fine. We can change it to strongly, but Nigel thinks that sounds all right to us. Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I haven't spoken. I just look at I can understand the sort of the feelings, but this will be going to the staff up there. And probably the staff say, what's Chitterslow? Who on earth are they? To me, the things are, we've got a completely almost dysfunctional, or that's pretty unfair to say that, but overtaxed health system, a hospital that can't cope now, and no plans for it being made more effective. There is talk of it being extended slightly, but if you're going to extend this housing, it'll just be back to square one. Roads that are totally incapable, no chance at this stage for much employment, serious things that are going to make up a community. I don't mean to be disrespectful for Chitterslow. We're talking about people, bean counters up in Victoria Square. And I think that those things we need to have at the top are hard-hitting things that we really know are going to cause this area grief if we get a wad of houses down here. I mean, what's happening now, the situation, just heard recently, I mean, it's quite frightening what has been and is likely to occur with the health system down here. And the word health, I cannot see it on that list at all of things that we're concerned about. Strain on service infrastructure, is health included there, or what's that? These at policing, yes, well, they'll just put an extra policing down here or something, but things that really matter to us, like health, like transport, like communication, and roads and people being able to get, they're going to have to drive somewhere to work. There's an environmental thing there with people driving backwards and forwards. The only train now is a play train. We used to have a train that was useful to us. All it is now is just for people to enjoy themselves on. So you can't say, well, hop on the train and that'll be useful. And they're talking of this huge extent. It just does not gel. And that's the sort of thing that I think we need to be way down the list. Lack of employment, or lack of, I'd say, the potential for employment. To accommodate all those people, we're going to have a whole lot of businesses happening here. The Gardner Street and its little offshoot, theoretically, it'll have to be quadrupled in size to cope with the things that are going to hold people down here, or else they're all going to be trekking up through Mount Compass and on up and onto the expressway. And one minute we're talking about putting in electric vehicles here and doing this and doing that, and expense putting power on the roof, and we're going to have all these people driving up emitting all these tons of stuff, and they won't all have electric vehicles going to work. It's those are the facts that I think we'll be drilling down on, and I say that again in total respect for Chitterslow and all they do, but we're talking about hard-hitting facts that are going to alter ministers' minds or alter the minders' minds to advise the minister, because he'll be advised by his minders. Those are the things that I think we should be doing, and I support a lot of the stuff that I want to see out, like below the contingency, all that. I totally agree, because that's one of the things I do. But I just think we need to look at this list and bring those high impact things that are really going to affect communities. When they go down there and they're beached at the hospital, they can't get out of the place, as happened to a patient the other day for 18 hours. They can't be admitted because there are no beds, and they're dying, as this person is currently trying to do. Those are the things that I think we haven't even touched on water and the effect potentially on the Maiponga Dam, which is nicely balanced now, but what's going to happen up that, there's an extension to, this isn't in isolation, this is where it's so ludicrous that we've got Victor Harbour running around doing their bit, with respect, that's fine. We're running around doing this. There's no one tying it together and saying, how do we want the Fleurieu Peninsula to look? Oh, we'll plonk some houses here, we'll plonk some houses there, and she'll be right. You know, I just think it's crazy stuff, and we need to, it's table thumping stuff, because it is just quick that they're obsessed with getting houses because there's so many people coming into the country.
We're over time, Councillor Scott.
Right.
I think there's no, I don't believe, I might be wrong, I asked Nigel, I don't believe there's any intention for the list to be a level of priority. I think it's just a list of items that are of concern, no set priority. So,
well, a question then.
No, Councillor Gardner's got a question next.
Sorry. Your Worship, is it possible to get the fourth of my issues up there? Because it's welfare, hospitals, ambulances, doctors, dentists is not on that list. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yes, welfare. So hospitals, ambulances, doctors, dentists, all of these were top priorities for people in our district.
So mover and seconder happy with that to go in, that should have gone in before. Okay. So Councillor Scott, you had a question?
My question was could we put particularly reference to health in there? I'd be putting it up higher than number 4, but because they will look, whether we think it doesn't matter, they'll say, oh, it's only down 4th if looking at impact. They don't see that as hard. I'd have that, the top, the length of time to get a doctor now or a dentist.
Okay, you've already spoken to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thornton?
A question, I suppose. Can someone confirm or deny my recollection from one of the information sessions is that it was talked about kind of extensively that they wouldn't do this development unless infrastructure was also included in some way or another?
Yeah. Through the Chair, that's correct. I think that perhaps what's missing from the debate, the other side of the argument that would be put if Future Urban were talking to, would be that this is a plan for the development of the next 30 years. So there's a lot of time for consideration for a range of service deliveries, including health, hospitals, police, employment. Where are people going to work? How are they going to get to work? Will we still be driving private vehicles in 30 years' time, or will it all be rideshare and we don't need any car parks anymore? There's a range of planning factors, and it all sounds pie in the sky, but 30 years is a heck of a long time. Things change considerably within that period of time as well. So I think we went a little bit more broadly where we talked about service infrastructure rather than the specifics, but additional clarity never hurts.
And it's something that we would still be extensively involved in?
Through the Chair, yes. I think that if the Minister proceeds, despite Council's strong objection, then there'd still be an opportunity for Council to be involved in that process.
Okay. Yeah, just in general, like infill is a really good idea and I think it's important, but it also scares me a lot in terms of infill without the infrastructure would be in the same position as everyone's worried about this development, which is going to be funded more so than what we're able to do. So I think everyone needs to really weigh that up.
Yeah, a lot of the infrastructure in Goolwa North, not this land we're talking about, but in what's referred to as Goolwa North, along that way, which is where there's lots of land which is open at the moment, not developed. A lot of the infrastructure is already in there, sewage and water and power. So it's all been put in, but not been connected to because the properties are just large acreage, but the stuff goes past them, where in this side it doesn't. Just so clarify that for you. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Livingston?
Thank you, Mayor Parkes. I won't repeat what a lot of other members said. However, I do want to emphasise that the community's reaction to this proposal was very significant. And it's not just from a Goolwa perspective, it's talked about in the city, it's huge, and it's also the character of Alexandrina Council and not just Goolwa, and we were elected by our community to represent our entire community, and although the focus is Goolwa, it is Goolwa North proposal, I will make some suggestions the significance of this for me is I can't remember anything this significant happening in this town other than the water security issues and the Murray River and the public outcry when that was happening. And I do share Councillor Coomans' views that it takes as long as it takes, and if it takes all night, it takes all night. However, I want to just propose a small change to the letter which says character of Goolwa, and where to say character of Goolwa and Alexandrina region, because it's not just about Goolwa, it's about Alexandrina region as well.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
I just have a question, Your Worship. Is there any reason that we can't, in this resolution, in this recommendation that we'll resolve, make it front and centre that we are, I know it's in the letter, but that we are requesting the deferral of any decision in relation to any code amendment relating to Goolwa until the Goolwa growth concept plan is completed? I mean, I understand we've had verbal advice. I'm just wondering why there's any reason that wasn't included as a front and centre in the resolution recommendation.
Through the Chair, from recollection, I think it's the last paragraph in the letter that we're sending that does refer to that we'd recommend that the Minister defer any decision until it's completed. Yeah. 17. It's the second part of paragraph 17 up on the screen.
It's included in there.
Yeah.
Well, the resolution's is saying what's in the letter, so I mean, it's part of the resolution. The letter is part of the resolution. So is it any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to your right of reply? No. So, okay, so we'll put the recommendation as varied and so forth to you. All those in favour? Against? Against? Councillor Scott, I can't...
I missed what you were saying.
Well,
could you
make
please
it simple.
repeat?
I'm asking you for or against. So
For or against
nothing,
what?
the recommendation as changed.
The whole thing?
As changed, what we've been talking about for the last half an hour or so. So again, for clarity, we'll put the recommendation again. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. And I'm going to call a division. This is the most important decision this council, I believe, has ever made, and certainly in the last 20 years. I'll ask all those voting in the affirmative to please stand. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Thornton, Councillor Scott, Councillor Coomans, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Maidment, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner. Thank you. Would those voting in the negative please stand? Councillor Miller, thank you. It is carried. Now, do you want to keep on going with this, or do you want to have a little break for 5 minutes? I do mean 5 minutes, though, all right? Not a quarter of an hour while we wander around. So we'll have a 5 minute break. We'll make it. We start at 8 o'clock exactly. At 8 o'clock, we recommence or continue with the meeting. 8.2 is the renaming of the Goolwa Sports Stadium, a consultation feedback, and there is a recommendation with 3 dot points. So is there, Councillor Miller, you wish to move that?
I wish to move point 1. Thank you, Worship.
So is everybody happy that we move these dot by dot? Oh, right. So Councillor Miller's moving 1. So is there a seconder, dot point 1? So any discussion on dot point 1? At the moment? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So dot point 2. Is there a mover for dot point 2?
Can I move dot 2 into it?
Pardon?
Can I move dot 2 into it?
If you wish.
I'll do.
Okay, that'd be good. Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Any discussion on 2 and 3? Councillor Scott.
I guess it's a question. Is the memorial plaque, can we sort of stipulate a size, or I think it needs to be a substantial size. I don't think it should be just a little sort of a, you know, an A5 on edge or something. It needs to be consistent with, I think it's unfortunate that we're not naming the stadium, but that I can understand the comments that have been made. But I think that as a compromise, I think we need to have a nice, worthwhile sized plaque in there.
Now you had a question. Now you're talking about it.
Well, I'm giving it some support.
Well, no, you're not. So you could easily then ask the question. Then you could say, if you wish, you could put, say, of a minimum, say, A4 size, which would be the size of that, which is about the same size as a memorial plaque on a war grave. So it's up to you. Do you want to do that or not?
I'd be very happy to do that, yes.
Okay, so, so you've done that?
Yeah.
So, so we've got that and we've spoken about it?
Excellent. Minimum of A4 is excellent, because it could be a little bit bigger than A4.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Coomans, you moved it, so you'll close the debate.
I was going to ask a question, if I could.
A question, yeah.
Yeah, if I could. And I forgot to do this because I was going to ask for an additional point 4, which said that a memorial plaque be placed at the entrance of the stadium acknowledging Mr James Baker's contributions to the stadium and the broader community as recommended by the Baker family and at an approximate cost of $500. I was going to ask that to be added.
Well, that's a question. It's a question. It's part of the discussion. So you need to do that when we get to the end of it. Which is awkward. Anyway, so is there any, Councillor Maidman?
So it's not a fait accompli that we're voting not to name this stadium the James Baker Sports Stadium, as intimated by Councillor Scott. If you approve this, you're rescinding that motion. Back in 17th of April 2023, where we agreed, I don't know whether it was unanimous or not, to name it the James Baker Stadium. Despite some of the comments, which are very ill-informed from the community, I'm still going with leaving it as the James Baker Stadium, and I'll be voting in that way. I won't be voting for these two motions, but I hope you'll see the same. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. This is something, is this something that could have been in future run past the Heritage Advisory Committee? Later in the agenda, we're considering pre-approved road names lists. Could a road have been named after James Baker if there wasn't one already? This was a process error that has highlighted a policy gap, and unfortunately Mr Baker's legacy and his family have been caught up in it. I am pleased to read that a policy is being developed to reduce the risk of this happening again. We must all be mindful of not falling into the trap of thinking everyone knows the history of places and people. We're no longer little communities where everyone knows each other. We must not overlook our past either. I really hope this does not diminish the valuable contribution of Mr Baker, and I'm delighted that there's been consultation with his family. My personal view was that the order of the recommendations should have been reversed. We should have perhaps dealt with three before we dealt with two, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. I think the outcome will be achieved and there will be recognition of Mr. Baker, and I hope that his family recognises that council does value the contribution that he made, and I look forward to policy being developed to minimise this ever happening again. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Questions? A question, Councillor Scott.
Why can't we do those 1 and 2 separately then?
Because we've already moved it and seconded it to do them the way we're doing it. Councillor, any discussion? Councillor Coomans, did you wish to speak to it and close the debate?
Well, in closing, I think what I said before that may have been an extra point is covered now in number 1. We didn't stipulate any price, but I think given it's the A4 size and it'll be a standard sort of plaque, special plaque in terms of acknowledging Mr. Baker, but it would be a standard one, so I don't think requiring an amount of funds to be expended is necessary, so I think it's covered it all. So, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. 8.3 is delivering a 2040, a 6-monthly progress report. There's a recommendation there that we receive the report from July to December. Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, you want to speak to it? Question.
So I have 2 questions. On page 330, there's a reference to the draft public toilet policy report going to Council 2024 January. That hasn't happened, or is it delayed, or for whatever reason?
Through the Chair, I pulled that one myself just at the last minute, so this report would have been written before I pulled the report. The toilet strategy report will be presented to the February meeting.
Second question, page 331, and it references community passenger network. Council continues to support community passenger network, ensuring that eligible community members facing transportation challenges can access local social activities as well as medical services in both local and metro areas. So my question is how, when and why. So it doesn't have to be answered tonight. I would like some detail on how much effort is expended on this, when it occurs, and why who is basically supporting which particular areas?
Through the Chair, there was a question on notice last year that answered a lot of that, so I can make sure that gets put back out in the portal, and anything missing we can put. If anything's changed, we'll report upon that.
Councillor Coomans, do you wish to second it?
Yeah, I wish to second it. Yeah, I'm happy to second it, but I've also got 2 questions, if I could. Yep. And these are on behalf of a resident who emailed me today asking about the, on page 336, there's mention of 8 cemetery management plans. And the question is, what does this mean for the cemeteries in Port Elliot, Middelton and Mount Compass? With they don't have any representation on that committee.
Through the Chair, we've had questions regarding committee membership before. Just because there's no members from Port Elliot or Middelton on these committees doesn't mean that they're treated any different. There will still be cemetery management plans.
Yeah, there's eight, sorry, Mayor, if I could. There's 8 cemetery management plans, but with no representation from those 3 areas, no expertise per se. What does it mean for those management plans?
Through the Chair, I don't understand your question.
Oh, I'll read what it says. Could you please ask about the 8 cemetery management plans, ? What does this mean for the cemeteries in Port Elliot, Middelton and Mount Compass with no representation on the committee?
Through the chair, we will develop the plans, we'll provide it to the committee, but I think what you're asking is there is committee membership and there's no representation specifically from the
those
port.
3 areas, yeah.
I don't think that puts the committees down at all. What also happens is that we'll send it to the committees for feedback. The committees will then provide feedback to council. Council, as the end decision makers, will be making decisions upon the cemetery management plans. We'll also seek feedback from the community on that. Any member of the Port Elliot cemetery can also provide feedback at that time. We're just looking at committee membership to provide feedback, and we're also asking for members from the community. We'll seek feedback from all.
Okay, all right. Another question from a resident was on page 338. Could you please ask when Middelton is going to have the community disaster resilience workshops as run in Ashbourne and Mount Compass? And I think these were the Red Cross ones. Is there a plan to hold them in Middelton as well?
Through the chairs, those resilient workshops were scheduled before the Middelton storm event occurred. They were held there in conjunction with the Red Cross. If there is future ones to be scheduled, we could consider Middelton at that time. But currently not planned.
And the other part of the email was an update on the storm water management in Middelton, because the work on the crossings is about to start, so it may have some impact on it. So is there an update on storm water management in Middelton?
Through the chair, there's a hydrologist report which is going to be presented to council, first of all, at an information session in February, and then it will be presented to council in February as well. No work has been scheduled that is going to be crossovered from the Middelton crossings. Are they expecting that there's work that was supposed to be carried out in February due to what was occurring? Okay.
Councillor Gardner.
May I ask a question? And I can't just find it in my hurry, but I noticed that under the cleaning contract, we managed to reduce $8,358 worth. I'm just hoping that cleaning is getting done properly.
Through the chair, that was a new contract that we did in the last 12 months. I think the contract is going fine. I think there's always issues with cleaning, but I was talking to Stacey on it earlier today that there is issues with cleaning. We identify it with the cleaners. They do the work. I believe it's been a successful savings and efficiency produced at Alexandrina Council.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just have some questions. I think this is a great report, thank you, and I really hope our community reads it. When will we commence a review of this Aid 2040 community plan?
Through the chair, we need to commence it within 2 years of the local government election. We've currently got it scheduled for October, I think we're talking about, Tash?
We'll commence work on it very, very soon. So as part of the outcomes from village conversations, we'll then start rolling through our planning process.
Thank you. The school holiday activity programs, do we run any of those in Strathalbyn?
Through the chair, yes, I believe that we do run several programs in the Strath Library by our staff, but I would have to confirm the numbers and what activities they are. I can take that on notice. Thank you.
What is a pathway master plan internal? Is that a footpath program?
Through the chair, that's correct, yes. Footpath program, yes.
Is that planned to become a public document, or is it just internal, not published anywhere?
Through the chair, the footpath plan has been an external program, so I'm not sure why we've put internal.
The Hills and Fleurieu Local Food Future Project, when's that next event planned, and who employs that 0.5 FTE food activator role?
Through the chair, that's another discussion I had earlier today. I'll get General Manager of Community to help me with that one.
I'm sorry, Councillor Miller, I heard half the question. Could you just repeat it for me?
The Hills and Fleurieu Local Food Future Project,
Yes.
when's that next event planned, and who employs that 0.5 FTE local food activator role?
Thank you. Through the chair, so the next food event, I'll have to take on notice, I'm sorry, but who employs, I don't have the exact list on me, but it's a group of councils and a couple of other organisations, and a couple of them we have spoken about at ASAP, but I'll decline to say them right now. I believe the Food Embassy is one of them, Mount Barker Council, but yes, I'm sorry, I have to take it on notice as the others for you.
Thank you. And just on the village conversations, do we know the resourcing impact to deliver that program? That was incredible, the level of resourcing and staff and time and locations. And I think it's a really valuable exercise, but I can only imagine how much it costs to take the CEO, the executive team on the road 8 times for 3 to 4 hours, plus staff, plus preparation time. Are we going to run that to that scale every year? Like 23 team members. I think it was great that we aligned it to other consultations. I think that was really smart, but I'm just mindful of the time.
We're not asking a question now, we're making a statement.
We haven't costed the internal use. A lot of it was done in existing staff that are on the board. Sorry. We haven't costed it, but definitely what I would anticipate we do as we roll through the next budget process and through our strategic management plan review, we actually also review the frequency that we want to deliver things like village conversations. And I think every time they'll be reiterated in a different model and a different version, where it was we got out of them what we needed this time, but I do agree it's very internally resource intensive.
Thank you. And just
Another one?
more question. Well, I'll speak then. Thank you, Councillor Maidment, for asking about the public toilet strategy, because I did notice that reference as well. That's probably the one thing that I get asked the most about in Strathalbyn is the public toilet strategy when it's coming for consultation. So I'm looking forward to that coming next month. Thank you.
And you were going to speak to it? No? Okay. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.4 is the grants and contribution programs. It's a mid-year report. There's a recommendation that we receive that report for July to December 23. Move, Councillor Livingston. Seconded, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion, Councillor Maidment?
So this is only a comment really that I noticed the community events fund is now exhausted, and obviously there was a lot of applications for those events to be run, which leaves 6 months of the year where there is no funding for community events. So I'm just wondering about the availability or the process whereby we should hold some funds back so that for the second half of the year. So I'd like whoever's operating the grants programs to consider that for 24 or for next year, because I'm sure there would be some organisations out there that would dearly love to tap into some funding for events.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I just want to quickly comment. Thank you so much for this report. There are good news stories that should be shared with our community. This is a very transparent report, and I congratulate the administration for taking the initiative in introducing this. I also appreciate not having all of the applications, because I don't think we need that level of detail, but I'm glad it's available upon request. So thank you for this.
Councillor Scott?
Yes, I'm just trying to find the grant where it is. Things going mad. But I just noted that I think it was $250 was given to an individual who was going to a national championship. And I just, I've been involved in raising money for people to go overseas into world competitions, and I know how hard it is. And those people that are going for a national competition or overseas, they're at the top of their game, and they need all the support they can get. And my mind just wandered to the fact that we'll spend $2,000 helping to have some fireworks on New Year's Eve, which will last, I timed them, they lasted 10 minutes. And yet this person who is going to a national competition, obviously qualified, we're giving them $250. And I just think that needs reviewing. I'd like to see it reviewed in the future, and so that there is, at least when someone achieves excellence in their particular profession or their particular sporting category, that we give them more than 1 cent for every resident in Alexandrina. And I don't think it's much to ask. It only happens occasionally. It's not a case of, come on down, we'll fund your sporting activity, whatever it is. It's for those that reach excellence and in their chosen field. Might be chess, might be a world chess championship, it might be whatever. In this case, it was basketball, for disability basketball, I think I'm right in saying. And I just think that we could change our priorities a little and be slightly more generous without incurring major debt for the council.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Are you for or against, Councillor Scott?
I'm for.
Can you please stay with us? Thank you. So, is there anybody against? It's carried unanimously. 8.5 is the community donation program. This recommendation that we received the report for October to December 2023. Moved Councillor Gardner. Seconded Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Maidman.
Thanks, Mayor Parkes. It seems like we've still got much funds available in that community donations, but the matter of sponsorship for the basketball championship, the request, according to this, was actually for $250. So, and that was approved. Yeah, thanks.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Just very quickly, thank you again so much for this report. I'm delighted that we're reporting to our community and the transparency that this brings. I do also really appreciate being included in all of the email requests, not just those made in the North Ward. I do continue to feel just a little uncomfortable approving these requests and still think it could be further streamlined and removed completely from council members and put on the Smarty Grant software to just, if they meet eligibility criteria, we lower the amount and we just process them. But I think it's great that this report comes to the community and the community knows about it, and not after the event or not at all. So thank you so much to the administration for doing this.
Any further discussion? put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.6 is the Encounter Bikeway engagement outcomes, and there's a recommendation there with two sections. Are you moving that, Councillor Miller? Yes or no?
Yes, Your Worship. I am doing recommendation 1 only. Thank you.
Recommendation 1, right. So is there a seconder for recommendation 1? 2. Right, one, second, Councillor Nicholson, right. Is there any discussion on recommendation 1? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. So we've got recommendation 2, which is the next steps. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner? Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Is there any discussion on stage 2? Councillor Miller?
Stage 2.
Recommendation 2, which is steps,
yeah, okay.
Next steps.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a couple of questions. Does this feature on a Southern Hills local government priority list or RDA's priority infrastructure lists? And who is the owner of or sponsor of the Encounter Bikeway? Is it Alexandrina or City of Victor Harbor as a whole? Or are we just talking about our bit here?
Through the chair, it is a combined project, given that it runs through both council areas. Victor Harbor can enhance their area alone, Alexandrina can enhance their area alone. We have been in discussions with Victor Harbor about how it joins up in the centre. This is a project which we discuss at the RDA. It's also something that we've discussed at Southern Hills. I'm pretty sure it's on a priority list for the RDA, but I would need to confirm that.
Sorry, can I?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, item number 26, Barrage Road South, does that include all the way to the barrage? And does it therefore potentially go across the barrage and include High Marsh Island?
Through the chair, it does not go across because it's not allowed to go across at the moment. You'll find in the attachments there's maps which I have organised for them to highlight exactly where it goes. So if you have a look at the highlighted area, that will answer your question.
And if we go ahead on these with the costings, how much is Alexandrina going to pay, and is that included in our long-term financial plan?
Through the chair, this is 300,000 for Alexandrina. Victor Harbor will also be doing a similar bid for their end, but they were just waiting to see where we're going. This does not necessarily put the money into the budget. It's just part of being considered and going out to consultation at this time. What was the second part of that question?
Is it included in the long-term financial plan at this time, or is this in addition?
Through the chair, I would need to check on that one for you.
And the other part of the question was, if this does all go ahead, out of the big number, what would be our contribution of the total project cost?
Through the chair, I think what we've estimated before is that the project just for Alexandrina would be up to about 22 million if we'll do the whole lot. But what this $300,000 is trying to do is just to get us more spade ready, just to go out and get some grant funding, or try and make it an election thing between the two councils when the next state government or federal government election comes up to fund such an important project.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Similar to Councillor Oliver's questions, I struggle with, we haven't seen a draft budget yet. We don't know what's been raised in the village conversations. We really don't know what our debt figure is. We don't really have a living, breathing, long-term financial plan. We don't have a sport and recreation strategy and facilities development plan or open space strategy. And I noticed the RAA has offered advice, but I can't see any funding. This consultation occurred in 2022, when we didn't have a wharf budget blowout and debt levels over 41 million. We don't have a fully functioning asset management plan that accounts for depreciation. I could consider renewal works for the end-of-life sections, and I do note the commentary about future alignment may mean spending money on renewal may be a waste of resources, but it's a bit like maintaining your car. You might be buying a new one in a few years, but you still have to get from A to B. In our current fiscal climate, $16 million on upgrade expansion works I would really struggle with. $5 million for renewal is even, pushing it. This would have to be funded by grant funding. To spend $300,000, I hope I understand correctly that we're just supporting putting it in the draft budget to go out for consultation, and we are not committing ourselves to $300,000. I just want to understand that really clearly.
Through the Chair, it is only putting it into the budget for consideration. This is a long-term project which has been going for many years. We went out to consultation, but we never did anything with the consultation that came back. So if Council doesn't want to do any more on this project, then it probably needs to give direction to Council for this. But what I'm trying to do is move it down and not sit on it and do anything. It's, well, we're going to proceed on this. This is our next stage. Yes, there's assets that need replacement that are coming up, and detailed designs needed for that. We're also responding to a Victor Harbour resolution that says, well, where does Alexandrina stand on this, and what are we going to do together? It is to consider it and put it out to consultation, and if the community thinks that we shouldn't be spending any more money on it, they can tell us. We can adjust it in the budget and go forth. As far as the long-term financial plan goes, we do have a functioning long-term financial plan at the moment. We will be presenting that to Council during workshops, and you'll know exactly where we stand and what's coming up and what's needed. We're also just about to finalise the figures for last financial year and do that. But all I'm presenting to you tonight is this is what occurred a year ago. What do we want to do with it now? If we're going to progress it forward, this is how much it's going to cost, and let's consider it in the budget.
Is there any further discussion, Councillor Maidment?
So I don't see any harm in putting this out for community consultation. We heard tonight from the Milang residents they don't want us to spend any money on Daranda Terrace. We had all that through the wharf processes where we had community comment about don't do this, don't do that, please do this. And I like to test the water with this going out to the annual business plan and budget 24-25. It may come back that no one wants to do anything about it, and as the CEO said, then we take it off the books. So I think it would be a good option.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what's been said. I think that these numbers of 16 million, 21 million are eye-watering and make me really nervous about, committing to getting a project shovel-ready, thinking how on earth would we be in a position to sort of underwrite a project, even if we had grant funding. We had grant funding for the wharf as well, and it's costing us a lot. So I think certainly feeling very confident that this is simply just going into the budget for us to consider. I can support it on that foundation, but feeling, really sort of concerned about the future of this project. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
I think we've also got to bear in mind that you can pedal from Victor Harbour over to Goolwa. And this is only an enhancement of the thing, and yes, getting it off, I think it's getting it off Seagull Avenue and all that sort of thing. But it's not as if there is no pathway. Considering, I just was alarmed when I saw I'm alarmed at 300,000. That's nearly 1% of our rate. And I'd rather see some painting on the road or something like that, or bit of extra signage, hatching where they can see the bike path so it really shows up or something, and keep our money. We one minute we're saying we can't spend, the next minute we're looking down the barrel at a large amount of money, and I can't balance the two, I'm afraid.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Jeepers, thanks Mayor Parks. We didn't seem to have much trouble last time in approving $800,000 to do some necessary work in the Strath Town Hall. But this project is such an exciting project. It connects Victor Harbour Bikeway and travels from Kyneton to Goolwa via Port Elliot and Middelton. It's some 21.5 kilometres in Alex alone. It is strongly supported by the community. The community have had to say in terms of the routes and made some slight modifications. It's got strong support by the RAA. The 300,000 is needed so it can be put in the stage where if there's funds available from other governments, anything up to the 21 million that's proposed as the budget for this, and it won't be built in 1 year, that it is ready for grants. And I'm just astounded sometimes that where we do spend money is fine, but where a project like this, which is such a great project, that we would say, oh no, we'd rather you get the bikes and things on the road. Give me a break.
Any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. We go to 8.7 is a correction to information. There's a correction regarding the Ratalang, Basham Beach and Horseshoe Bay Advisory Committee, and there's a recommendation there with that change. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Scott?
Yes, it's unfortunate, and he was a valuable member in the short time that he was with us. He's a very valuable member, and we regret his passing.
Councillor Oliver, you're seconding it. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.8 is an appointment to the Climate Emergency and Environment Committee. So there's a recommendation there noting that Councillor Coomans is dropping off of that and looking for somebody to go on until the end of 2026. So is there a member that wishes to go on that committee? Councillor Scott, you want to go on it, or are you just waving to me?
I don't normally self-promote. I would wish to move 1 and 2, noting the amount of work that Councillor Coomans has been involved in the emergence of that, first of all with the Climate Committee and then the merging of the two committees and getting it all to a really workable state. And I would like to nominate Councillor Nicholson as the member to replace Councillor Coomans.
So, Councillor Nicholson, you happy to go on there?
Thank you. Yes.
Anybody else want to go on there? You want to second? You want to second it? Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Congratulations. Well done. 8.9 is a costing for fencing of Bristow-Smith Reserve Nature Playground, Goolwa. There's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson.
May I speak briefly?
Yep.
Thank you. I really appreciate this report coming back as the response to a motion that I put recently. I did have one concern, however, that in my motion, I was seeking the costings of a fence that was sort of sympathetic to the current materials, and a pool fence is absolutely not what I had envisioned. And I think a lot of effort went into making choosing the materials for the nature playground. So I'm concerned that while this is technically delivering, and I appreciate that very much, and I do understand, that there will be a cost difference, I would be keen to see an additional quote for materials that would align with the current nature-based materials. Thank you.
Through the chair. Good evening. I went through this extensively with the fencing team, and they said, considering the area, the best material was the one that was proposed. I actually like the wooden slatted ones, which I went through again in depth with them, and they showed me one that's already on there that's all broken up and sharp and not good for kids' playgrounds because kids climb on them and can get impaled. So I was quickly turned away from that material. We didn't see another material, to be fair, to do that whole playground as to how we would want to do it. He did say, though, that, I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but when you look at that pool fence or you look through it, it doesn't exist in your head. So I don't know what he means by that, but that's what he was talking about. So that's why we got to that position, yeah.
Councillor Maybert, are you seconding it?
Oh, it's a question.
No, we want a seconder first.
Oh.
Is there a seconder for it? If there is no seconder, it will lapse through want of a seconder. So that's it. Just on that one, when that playground was built, the fence was discussed as part of the project and was overwhelmingly knocked back and set back by both the designers and the consultants we used and the community as being not warranted and inappropriate. And I think we had the same discussion about the playground that we upgraded at Strathalbyn behind the pool. And the trend in these consultants' ideas these days is you don't fence children in, you look after them. So that's, sorry, just wanted to give you a bit of an update. It'd be good to get that, go back to the Bristow-Smith project some years ago in the history, it's all in there, and find out about that. So 8.10 is the project budget adjustments. And now there's a recommendation, 1, 2, and 2 with the items in there total. Is there a mover for them? Move, Councillor Livingston. Is there a seconder? Yeah, you want to speak to it? Yeah, speak to it. Question, yeah.
If I may, is the amount in the revised budget required to complete the projects?
Through the chair, with the description, I'm just looking at the signal point building compliance work. So if we get $65,000, that will finish the compliance works. But as far as the whole signal point building goes, yeah. But these other two that we've got there, the Visitors Information Centre and the Kite and Rocks, the good things with them is that we have got quotes there, and with this movement in budget, we will accept those quotes and get that work done. Yes.
Councillor Maybert.
Question, how does a $20,000...
You are seconding it, aren't you? We haven't got a seconder yet.
Question.
Well, we'll have a seconder before we start. Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Gardner. Now, do you wish to ask a question?
So, in the budget, $20,000 for the roof replacement. How does that require $70,000? That's a fairly large discrepancy. Was there something seriously wrong with the roof in the first place?
I think it's a case of once they have a look at it, they realise that it was the 70,000, or they've gone out to, and Andy can add to this, but what we're trying to also do is go out and get these quotes before we actually commence, as opposed to getting a quote and doing the budget in the same year. So with the more realistic figures. But Andy?
Yeah, through the chair, this is the same or similar to Strathalbyn roof. You know, the Strathalbyn roof we looked at and we thought, yeah, that's this sort of figure. Then as soon as you delve a little bit deeper, it gets accelerated. This was the same sort of project. As soon as we lifted the tin, which you couldn't see until you lifted it, we found abnormalities, so we needed to reflect on that.
Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver?
Thank you. It says in point 2 that we'll be offsetting the increases from the unsealed road program. How much is that going to be, and can we incorporate that into this now and offset it so we're only approving a net number?
Through the chair, when it first came to me, it was offsetting that there was about 200,000 savings in the renewal program, but they also had a little clause in there that said subject to the final invoices being received, and I was just, well, let's just receive the final invoices and then put it through to the budget review. So I'm hoping it's still around the $200,000 mark.
Thank you. And I notice a couple of these are around the wharf. The wharf has a contingency budget of $250,000. Can the item 1 and item 3 come out of that?
Through the chair, the contingency at the wharf is $1 million. And we're starting to worry about that $1 million already. So my answer to that, can we slip more into that, is no. In my CEO report, you'll note that I've already identified some items that will need to come, and I will formally present them to council as far as variances to the wharf goes.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for bringing this as a separate report and not in the CEO's report. It does make it easier to find later, and it's also much more transparent. I am not comfortable with shifting budget around in asset classes. The question I have is, how have the savings come about in the unsealed road renewal program? And that is, of the 1,199,705, how much is left over? Wouldn't that be better spent on road assets maintenance?
I'll answer that one. Through the chair, it's not actually shifting money around. It's basically saying that that we're going to be overspending in one area and underspending in the other, which I know that's technicality, but you can't shift between asset classes, which I think is exactly what you're trying to say to me. When I first got the report, they identified another $200,000 worth of road renewal, which could occur if they were to do more. Would then ask the question, well, do they need to be replaced this year? And the answer was, oh no, they can wait until next year. And I went, well, I don't want to start replacing assets early. So let's give back the $200,000 this year. And if we need to do more road renewal next year, let's ask for more road renewal when it's time to actually replace those assets. So that's what's going on here.
So just a follow-up question to that then. So does that mean next year our budget will increase by what we've just taken away based on that? Why was it on there to be renewed if it didn't really need to be renewed? I'm just...
Through the chair, what the additional roads they gave me was trying to pull things forward from next year. So maybe it would be less next year that needed to be renewed. I haven't got the complete renewal program for next year, but what you should be replacing on a year-to-year basis is what needs to be replaced. So if they don't need to replace more roads this year, let's not replace more roads this year. If they need to replace more next year because they're due next year, let's replace more. Let's not try and bring forward stuff because there's money available. Let's have a look at the organisational wide, well, what do we actually need to achieve this year and what do we need to achieve next year?
So is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour?
Councillor Scott.
Oh, God. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'm afraid I see this as important, so I hope people don't see it I'm wasting council's time. Rural roads are important, and I'm sure that there will be appreciate that if roads don't need replacing and renewing, then we don't necessarily do them. I don't know whether that's drafted off from maintenance of roads, but I haven't driven all the roads, but I know there would be some that need attention, and I would like to think that those roads get attention first, and what's left over can go to balance the budget. But I'm not sure that our rural ratepayers should have to bear the brunt of a poor quality road because we've whizzed the money over to another part. I realise it's serious. I realise I'm interested to hear you talk about the concern about the contingency at the wharf, because all along I've felt that when they lift the lid on the wharf they'll find more than they expected. But I just roads are very, very important. They're the way people get from A to B, the produce gets carried out on it, and as last year or the year before, we corrected a road that was in very, very poor condition out there near Hartley, and I haven't been around all the back roads. I try to get to as many as I can, but I just would want to be sure that those roads are serviceable and fit for purpose before we take the money away. The roads have suffered badly this year with all the extensive rain, and I just think we should be cautious about how we take money from our roadworks.
The team will assess the roads and do them as they need to. So is there any further discussion? No. Oh, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. I did 1 and 2 together. Sorry, I said 1 and 2 right from the beginning. I said recommendation 1. Do you want to do them again? You want to do recommendation 2 separately? I did say recommendation 1 and 2. Yeah. Trying to. Yeah, that was a straightforward one. 8.11 is the lease and licence policy activities from October to December 2023, the quarterly report. This recommendation that we receive and note that report. So Councillor Livingston moving that. Second to Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion relating to that report? Councillor Miller.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just wanted to declare a general conflict of interest for one of the activities listed due to my employment. I will remain in the chamber and I will vote as this is receiving the report only.
Is there any further discussion on it? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? So Councillor Scott, you're against it? I'm sorry, but I have been here just as long as you, and I want to get to the end of it, and I can't take your vote if you do not put your hand up. It is so frustrating sitting here having to put up with this. So, all those in favour, would you please raise your hand? Against? It's carried unanimously. It just makes it so hard to try and run a meeting when people don't put their hand up. 8.12 is the Chief Executive Officer's report, and there's a recommendation 1 and 2 there that we received that report and some notes that are in there. Moved Councillor Oliver. Yeah, 1 and 2. Is there a seconder, Councillor Maidment? Is there any discussion, Councillor Coomans?
Thanks, Mayor Parkes. Look, I just want to ask a question in attachment 1, which is the capital projects report. I struggle a bit getting through them. Is it possible to either include an extra column that sorts it into wards or actually denotes which ward it's in? It makes it so much easier to understand what's actually happening in the ward.
Through the chair, we can add that, but we'll also do some that says council-wide as well, because some aren't specific to wards. Yes. We've got it in alphabetical order because I look for, if you give me a name of a project, I can then just alphabetically go down and find it, but we'll put the ward and colour-coded or something for you.
Sorry, I'm not asking for it to be sorted in ward, but there's a column that says what ward it's in. And it's just a letter donation, north, south or west.
Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I have some questions about the Goolwa Oval Recreation Precinct. When can Council expect to see what is being proposed? Will it be in time to consider the cost implications for Council as we enter the 24-25 budget cycle? When the report comes back, will an accurate number of members for each of the clubs party to the management model be included? And has a response been provided to the Goolwa Bowling Club in response to their deputation and recent correspondence?
The bowling club's got nothing to do with the Oval Precinct, two separate things. so I don't know about the response to that. As far as the actual Goolwa recreation grounds and the sporting groups that are part of that, we've had obviously Christmas and New Year, people have been away. There is a meet, Stacey and I will be having a meeting with them next Tuesday. At that stage we'll be presenting to them draft leases and subleases and a breakdown of the responsibilities and liabilities of council and them as users to take away and consider and come back with their feedback. Once we have that established, we'll be then in a position to prepare the actual leases and subleases, and then a report will come to council. Yeah, the bowling club were asked to write to us, apparently Nigel said so. Yeah, there we are. Any further questions or discussion regarding Nigel's report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Just on the Goolwa Wharf precinct. The project variances for the wharf and Signal Point, these include external project management, engineers and construction costs. Issues identified with major electrical cables are being investigated. Do we have a ballpark figure? Is the quarterly budget review coming February going to have some reference to these variances? And if we are looking at this contingency, will there be some kind of, well, here's what we don't do in order to be able to do this? I also have a question, is how's lot 10 tracking? Because in the A 2040 update, a report to January meeting was flagged.
Through the chair, as Matt's walking up to answer the lot 10 questions, I'll answer the wharf questions. There is $1 million contingency which council's already budgeted for. We are still within the contingency, but I think that we're pushing possibly $500,000 already. It is significant what's coming through. There is also a capital works contingency within the overall budget, which we may have to draw upon. What they're doing at the moment is not something that we can say you can't do. It's stuff that needs to move forward. So when you're asking about what can we offset, are you looking for stuff outside of the wharf? Yes. When we present the quarterly budget review, we'll present all projects and talk about what we can and cannot do with all the projects that are going on. I've flagged them early in tonight's agenda. The whole agenda was actually prepared before I sat at Tanya's desk and put that line in there, because I didn't want council to say, hey, you didn't even flag that there's something going on. I'm flagging there's something going on before I know exactly the amounts and how much it is. But when I'm talking about $500,000, where it's significant, and it concerns me myself. Yes. Lot 10.
Thanks. Through the chair, just in relation to lot 10, the consultants, TSA Consulting, who are looking after the business case, had returned from leave on Wednesday of last week. I know Kylie touched base with them late last week to arrange a meeting for Kylie and myself to discuss how that's progressing. So we're hoping that will occur early next week.
Any further questions or discussion around Nigel's report? So this is recommendation 1 and 2. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. We move on to section 9, which is section 41, committees and advisory panels, minutes and reports. 9.1 is the minutes of the section 41 South Australian Wood and Boat Festival Committee of the 3rd of January. And there's a recommendation there that this report be received. Move Councillor Livingston. Second, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion regarding that? Councillor Maidman.
Just a question. Given that the South Australian Tourism Commission is coming up with $50,000 in sponsorship for 2025, what is the indicative amount that council would be asked to contribute for 2025? Because we'll be deliberating that, I presume, in this budget.
Through the chair, thinking about this year's budget, when we thought we were running an event in 2024, we put an amount of $70,000 into the budget. I cannot recall whether that included 25,000 from external parties at that stage, so I'm going to say the ballpark would be between 50 and 70,000.
Any further discussion on that, Councillor Oliver?
I think it might have been 70,000. Just a question, out of the last event, there was money paid, but admin started off doing the event management, and then partway through an external event manager appointed, and his payments were paid out of the staff budget, not out of the Wooden Boat Festival budget. Is that going to be the same situation coming forward? So where will the external project management costs be funded?
Through the Chair, first of all, I've got confirmation that it'll be $75,000 that's just come through to me. And as far as event management or external event management, Stacey's currently working on structuring her team, so I can't answer that question tonight, whether that be done internally or externally, whether it be treated as staff cost or not. So we'll cover that during the budget process.
Any further discussion relating to Councillor Miller?
Just a question. Is the committee planning to seek council endorsement to appoint Mark Harvey? Are those appointments done by council to that committee?
Through the Chair, the appointments will be done by council. There is some governance stuff that needs to be done, and that will be brought back to council. We're not asking for you to do that tonight.
Do you have any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Just a bit disappointed that the following Wooden Boat Festival will be actually held on Anzac Day. And I just thought that was unfortunate. And I'm surprised that some other weekend couldn't have been chosen.
Just have to draw it to the committee's attention and see if they can change it. Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.2 is reports for Section 41 Committee, South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee new dates, and there's a recommendation of the committee and the officers. So it comes to two items. So moved as one. Move, Councillor Livingston. You want to speak to it? Yep.
So I just wanted to highlight in relation to the dates that were put forward by the committee is that we had two meetings to discuss the potential dates and the interaction with the South Australian Tourism Commission funding, and we were aware that the date did coincide with Anzac Day, and which was one of the positive reasons why doing it, to have the same interaction as we have in previous years with the Navy squadron. Is that right?
808.
Yeah, 808. Join in the festivities as well. The only other comment I wanted to make is in relation to the appointment of any committee members that is going to be discussed at the next meeting, and in relation to the budget, us as a committee have not yet had an opportunity to go through that for the next festival.
I misremembered we did have Anzac Day and the Wooden Boat Festival at the same time once before, because we did a ceremonial sunset down at the wharf and the whole crowd were there and it was awesome. So, yep, it was. So, is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Against? Councillor Scott, I still didn't see a yes or no. So let's start again. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.3 is the minutes of the Section 41 Committee, the Heritage Advisory Committee, their highlights report, and it's their note for their meeting held on the 6th of December 2023. Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconded, Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? Councillor Maidman.
Just quickly, this is a very useful committee for us, getting your pre-approved road names, looking out for different areas of...
Councillor Maidman, you're on the next item.
Oh, sorry, is that the wrong one?
So is there any discussion around item 9.3? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Now we go to item 9.4, which is a report from the Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee on pre-approved road names. You wish to move that, Councillor Maidman, and speak to it? Yes,
I had the wrong one opened up. I'm getting ahead of myself here. A committee that's working very effectively. We are looking for another member. Unfortunately, someone had to resign from this committee. They were based at Port Elliot, I believe. So if you know of anyone, please reach out to the Heritage Advisory arm of Council. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
So do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.5 is the minutes of the Section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Committee from the 4th of December. As a recommendation, do we receive that report? Move Councillor Livingston. Can I speak to it? Yeah.
The only thing I would like to vary in the motion, if possible, is it possible to add a comment about Councillor Coomans' dedication and time and effort spent on the committee, and to formally acknowledge his work done in what wording you wish to use?
We have a second, Councillor Scott. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.6 is the minutes of the Section 41 Audit and Risk Committee of the 8th of December 2023, and there's a recommendation that we receive those minutes. Move Councillor Oliver.
I would like to speak to it.
Yeah.
Something not mentioned, and I don't want to embarrass anyone or cause a big fuss, and I have raised this with the CEO and been assured that actions are underway, but our financial accounts for the last financial year are not done. Our audit is not done. Our annual report is not released, as these are overdue by almost 3 months. The last time I asked, we didn't even have a reconciled trial balance, so we effectively cannot account for the money that we spent over 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So I must note to the Chamber this is not acceptable, and that we must be in a position to account for the money that we spend, and we must take remediation actions right now to fix this situation, which I have been told is happening.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Councillor Miller, you speak to it?
Just very briefly, I just wanted it noted in the minutes. It talks about adding whistleblowers to the policy, the title of the policy. And I just wanted to comment that that's not contemporary language, and I don't believe it should be referenced in any policy. It's no longer referred to as whistleblowing, it's public interest disclosures, and I think we need to be consistent with the external bodies and the Act, the two Acts. Thank you.
We can take that back to the committee. Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10 is council member reports. 10.1 is the presiding member's report, which is mine, for December 2023. There's a recommendation that it be received. Move Councillor Livingston. seconded. Councillor Gardner, was it? Yeah. Any questions or discussion regarding that report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.2 is the council member activity report. We have a report from Councillor Gardner. Recommendation that's for November and December that we received it. Is there somebody that we move to accept that?
Say that yesterday I went to Milang and launched this book on behalf of Alvin Hopgood. The supper room was absolutely packed to the doors, and I had the honour of launching the book, and this book will go in the library to the history room.
Anybody else got anything they'd like to add to it? So we just need a... Can you make your mind up? Are you wanting to speak?
Well, I'm moving Councillor Gardner's report.
You're moving... Well, or any other members' reports. So Councillor Miller's moving it. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. So Councillor Gardner gave us an update on something that she was involved in. Anything else from anybody else? Councillor Scott and I were at the back to steam power rally at Milang yesterday, and that was on the weekend. It was a huge crowd both days, and so yeah, it was very well attended and a really good event, and a credit to them for doing that. And Oscar W was down there as usual, supporting the town over 2 days, taking people out for rides. So yeah, it's excellent. So Councillor Coomans.
If I may, I've got a couple of reports to make. The first one is in relation to the Oscar W. The CEO and myself, together with President and Vice President, met on Thursday the 11th to discuss the best way forward, and we agreed on a certain process. It was also agreed that the volunteers would take responsibility for the work in the volunteers area, and there is a budget of some $15,000 for that. I think overall the project is progressing very well. I've attended all of the committee meetings and things are on track. I attended the Friday the 12th meeting and provided an outline of the presentation to Council and the unanimous decision made by Council, so thank you for that. I think they very much appreciate the support of this Council in what they're trying to do. I've got to think about this one because I've got something that I got very angry at last meeting, and I'm just tossing up whether I'm going to say what I'm going to say, but I really do need to say this, and I'm going to read it so I don't sort of get off track. And it's on two matters. One is, rather than providing one-liners about how busy I am, and some of the information is contrary to the meeting procedures policy anyway, I'd like to provide some verbal feedback on what our community is saying about how we, as a council, are performing. And I won't mention Nankita Road, which continues to be a disaster and is attracting much adverse comments. From a personal perspective, I've been part of some 8 or 9 council terms with the City of Marion, City of Onkaparinga and this council. In my view, the worst group were those comprising the last term of this council, when we had things like expenditure of some $200,000 on mostly trivial codes of conduct of members. I hate to say it, but unfortunately this current group is also below par in my view, especially the way we go about making decisions on the run rather than properly considered. I'm only too happy to have a discussion on how to improve our performance, and it isn't hard, but does need a change in our meeting procedures, but is totally in line with the Local Government Act and is commonly used by many of the larger metropolitan councils. We often get complaints from residents that our rates are higher than any other council, and is in the main somewhat true. The most feedback I have received is in relation to our rating system. You will note we only have 2 rating scales, one for primary producers and one for residential, commercial, industrial and vacant land. The primary producers are a very powerful group and can be extremely active and have been in the past. The rest, not so much, but I'm hearing that they too will become very active, especially since the deferred motion from the December meeting to consider a review of the rating system to after the next election will probably make it the most significant issue in the next election. At that December meeting, I think, millionaire primary producers attended one of them invaded my working space in this council to ask whether I was going to withdraw a particular motion, and then proceeded to another member and gave that member a huge hug. The orchestrated formal motion on the rates review was to follow shortly after. 7 of the 9 council members were in attendance that night. So residents who have had discussions with me include retired couples who depend solely on their pension to live in our wonderful community. They pay full rates.
Point of order, Your Worship. This motion was deferred. This is a debate. What are we doing here?
Who are attempting
What is
to
this?
pay off their homes and also receive no benefits and pay full rates. We may be looking to support affordable housing areas, but will receive benefits in them paying full rates.
This is a personal statement, not a report on your activities.
Well, we normally have it at this part of the evening, so if you like, I can make it a personal statement.
No, make it a personal statement.
Okay, I'll do that. I also have a family of 10. A father who's about to leave this earth.
I suppose that we should actually, Nigel's advising me on the background here, on the run, but we should seek leave of the meeting to receive a verbal presentation, personal presentation, so I ask all those in favour to continue to receive it. Against? So we won't receive it. I think if there's a report, you may be, if it's a report regarding elected members' performance, maybe you should write it to the CEO.
I'll put it in writing.
Is there any further personal statements people want to make as far as their activities? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 11 is
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.